You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
Okay, so I will proceed with the roll call vote.
That's correct.
Attendance, sorry. Representative Edelman,
Representative Edelman present.
Representative Alphone,
Representative Alphone, present.
Representative Anderson,
Representative Anderson, present.
Representative Austin,
Representative Austin, present.
Representative Black,
Representative Black, present.
Representative Brockett, I see you, Representative Brockett. You're,
Can you hear me now?
yes.
All right,
Thank-
Representative Brockett present.
Thank you. Representative Conklin,
Representative Conklin is present.
thank you. Representative Everson,
Representative Everson, present.
Representative Erlanger,
Representative Erlanger, present.
Moderator Flanagan,
Present.
Representative Greenberg,
Representative Greenberg, present.
Representative Haken,
Representative Haken, present.
Representative Healy,
Representative Healy, present.
Representative Henschel,
Representative Henschel, present.
Representative Hines,
Representative Hines is present.
Representative Ingraham,
Representative Ingraham, here.
Representative Jackson,
Representative Jackson here.
Representative Kelly, does anyone see Representative Kelly? No. Okay. Representative Leach is present. Representative Preet,
Representative Preet is present.
Representative Riccio,
Mark Riccio is present.
Representative Sember,
Representative Sember is present.
Representative Shrestha,
Representative Sestra, present.
Representative Shires,
Representative Sires, present.
Representative Sumro,
Representative Sumro is here.
Representative Stepanek,
Stepanek is here.
Representative Sullivan,
Representative Sullivan is here.
Representative Torelli,
Representative Torelli is here.
Representative Toohill,
Yes, Representative Frank Toohill is present.
and Representative Wells. Representative Wells? No. Okay, and maybe some help with ex officios. Is First Selectman Cosgrove present?
Here.
Thank you. Representative Selectman Dunbar?
Here.
Town Clerk Arpin?
Lisa Arpin, here.
Are any other ex officios present? I don't think I see them. Okay, I think we're all set. We have 28 present representatives and 2 absent.
Okay, thank you. This is Dennis Flanagan. Thank you. Okay, item number 2 is the approval of the minutes of the previous meetings. Do I hear a motion for approval?
Representative Brockett make a motion to approve the minutes.
Representative Ingraham seconds.
Okay, there's a motion that's been made by Representative Brockett, seconded by Representative Ingraham. Is there any discussion on that?
Town Clerk Arpin, I just want to make a note. It's the meeting minutes of the September 9th meeting. Thank you.
Correct. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Abstentions, the meetings are approved without exception. Item number 3, receptions of communications, reports of committees and citizens petitions. I do have a few items here. I have a letter from Tom Brockett and Tracy Everson regarding amendment to the town code. It has come to our attention that some R.T.M. committees take minutes of committee meetings, others do not. Further seldom do we see committee minutes posted on the town website. There is neither a continuing among the committees nor a record of the committee meetings. We ask this item be considered following the amendment to the code of the town of Branford. Specifically, we request that the Rules and Ordinance Committee approve the following amendment to Chapter A 236 Town Meeting Rules as follows. And it goes on to propose section that Section 4, it shall be the duty and responsibility of each standing or special committee to choose a clerk who shall be responsible for taking the minutes of the said committee meeting. The committee clerk shall prepare the minutes of each meeting and shall deliver said meeting minutes to the town clerk no later than 2 weeks after said meeting. The minutes shall be posted on the town website. I will send this to the Rules and Ordinance Committee. Just for a point of order on this for the FOI, this has basically been standard procedure for the committee chairs for some time to submit their minutes within 7 days. But I don't have an issue with this for clarification. If the committee chairs want to assign a clerk to do this, that's entirely up to them. Okay, the next piece of the correspondence I do have is from Mr. Cook. Let's see. Dear Branford R.T.M, please be advised that a number of Branford boards and commissions are utilizing Zoom technology to censor citizens' comments and in some cases remove citizens from online town meetings. These include the Board of Selectmen, Planning and Zoning Commission, Economic Development Commission, Clean Energy Commission, the Branford Housing Authority, and though other town bodies may also be engaging in such practices. In adherence to the Governor's Executive Order 7B and the provisions of the First Amendment to the United States Constitution, it is asked that the Branford R.T.M issue a policy and town-wide order that prohibits citizens from being muted by means at a town meeting. My recommendation, my ruling on this is that if there is an issue on this, this should be sent to the governor's office. It is his executive order. Therefore, I don't believe that R.T.M.
May I speak to that? May I speak to that, please?
Go ahead, Mr. Cook.
Well, I just came from the selectmen's meeting, and the first selectman is a prime example of what I'm talking about. All I wanted to do was to screen share, and he won't allow citizens to screen share. Now, most of the old timers in here will know that, 10, 12 years ago, I used to bring in a lot of posts, maybe too many by some people's account. Now, because of COVID, I can't do that. So what does the first selectman say to me? Well, hold them up to the camera like this. I mean, is he serious? So this is what I'm saying. I mean, you have a first selectman that obviously doesn't want to hear what I have to say, because there's very little good in that whole thing. So what he's doing, he's taking advantage of this pandemic to censor people. And don't tell me he's not, because there's no reason in the world that he should not allow any citizen to screen share. So I think this should go directly to R&O and get a policy for this town where people, whether they're citizens or public officials, are treated fairly. Because I wasn't treated fairly just then. Why shouldn't a citizen be able to screen share? You really think I'm going to stand there and go like this? Oh, by the way, do you see this poster? It's crazy. This is the guy that's governing this town. I mean, come on, give me a break. Can you please rule on that again? Because this is not fair. It's not fair.
Again, as I said, I just ruled on that no action for the R.T.M.
All right.
Okay.
And you really think, Dennis, I'm going away? You really think I'm going away?
Okay, moving on from another letter from Mr. Cook. This is Please be advised that under Rule 73-3 of the Town Code below, it is the R.T.M. that is the sole authority of all land transfers or encumbering in any manner of real property. The rule states, no town agency, town officer, or the Board of Selectmen shall acquire, sell, lease, mortgage, abandon, gifts, transfer, or encumber in any manner real property of the town until such action has been approved by the majority of the members of the R.T.M. Nothing shall waive the requirements of the Connecticut General Statute, Section 8-24, and amended for the first time. As such, any embarking the town land by the first selectman, like that being proposed for the animal shelter, walking trails, and are literally encumbered by him to date, example, the encumbering of the Taper property for the Shoreline Gateway Trail, it is not within its authority and therefore illegal. It is asked that the Branford R.T.M. allow no further transferring or encumbering of land by the first selectman until the first approved by the body, and take immediate action to remedy all legal transfers, encumbering, and that has been committed by the first selectman to date. Okay. Let's see. Another letter from Mr.
What are you going to do with that one? Excuse me. What are you going to do with that one?
It just, your letter states, Wayne, that no land no land transfer should be undertaken until approval of the R.T.M., which is standard procedure.
Yeah. No, it's not, because he's doing it as you speak. This is what I'm saying. I mean, you guys have really got to get engaged in this town process. You really do. You don't even know what's going on in front of you. I mean, he's giving away $20 million worth of property, and you're just letting him do it. And that's the whole point. And this is your rule. This is your rule. This is the rule that the R.T.M. put in, 25 years ago? To prevent this very type of thing. And you're saying it doesn't matter? You know, I mean, come on. No wonder we're dishonest, because nobody's providing any sort of balance here. Nobody. Unbelievable.
Okay.
I cannot believe our town government.
Okay, another letter here from Mr. Cook. It is a growing concern to the Branford residents, taxpayers, and public officials that the Blackstone Memorial Library is less than transparent and accountable in its operation, and serious consideration should be given to the possibility of establishing a town commission for greater scrutiny and oversight. On behalf of the community, it is asked that this item be placed on the R.T.M. agenda for further input and study. This Blackstone Library, Mr. Cook, comes under the jurisdiction of the Education Committee. There is a committee that oversees the operation of the Blackstone Library. And more so that our finance director now, from my understanding, is working in conjunction with their treasurer to keep checks and balances on their financial status. So the issue of establishing another committee is not necessary at this time. We do have a committee. The Education Committee is the one that's responsible for overseeing the Blackstone Library. So no action on that either. And let's see here. I do have one more request here from Mr. Cook. Please find the final draft of the proposed Branford Energy Plan formulated by the Clean Energy Ad Hoc Committee. Given that this plan has received no input whatsoever from the residents, business community, R.T.M., or other town bodies, it is solely the product of a heavily biased committee promoting what may consider to be a political propaganda. The Branford R.T.M. is asked to take an immediate action role in this matter and in its impact on the community. Please refer the support issue to the appropriate R.T.M. committee for further study. This Ag Hoc Committee is set up by the Board of Selectmen, and the committee is appointed by the Board of Selectmen. I would recommend or suggest that anybody wishing to become part of this committee contact the Selectmen's office.
You're missing the whole point. Excuse me, but you're missing the whole point.
Let me just finish what I'm saying, Mr. Cook, okay? So my ruling on this, that there's no further study is needed by the R.T.M. I encourage them to get involved. I think this is an important aspect of the Branford Energy Plan, but to form another committee is not necessary.
Can I speak now? Can I speak?
Now you can speak. Yes, you can.
Okay, here's the deal. far as this energy.
Please identify yourself. Thank you. This is Town.
Wayne Cook. The Energy Committee was trying to sneak through this energy plan. If it weren't for citizens and a few RTM members, they would have done it. So the point is, they weren't even going to bring this comprehensive energy plan before the RTM for their examination and their study and their approval. So don't tell me that, they're some great committee that's off on their own. You should be vitally and very intimately involved in this thing. And to get back to your other point, the only reason the Blackstone's talking to the finance director at this point is because I personally went in there and asked them why they're keeping that $100,000 that you guys were all complaining about, but nobody went in there and said anything about. So don't give me that nonsense that we don't need a commission, because all I do is hear this RTM bellyache about the Blackstone, but when it comes time to do something, you just sit there. So, I don't know who you're kidding. Am I muted now?
No, you're okay.
All right. I'm going to shoot straight tonight. If you don't like what I have to say, well, then say something back. But I'm sick and tired of sitting here and watching the RTM just let this town do whatever they want in the hands of the first selectman, and you don't really live up to the role that you play. And I'm going to say it over and over again tonight. And you're starting with these letters. These letters are all valid. Every single letter is valid. Certainly the issue is valid. And you, once again, Dennis, you're just glossing them over and forcing us to go to citizens petitions again. When the citizen petitions get in your hands, then you say to yourself, geez, maybe these citizens have a concern that's valid here. Well, why does it have to take a petition to do it? Why don't you folks see that? Why don't you see that?
Okay, Mr. Cook, thank you very much for your comments. That's all I have under communications and letters and petitions.
Mr. Moderator, this is Representative Ingraham.
Yes, go ahead.
You missed a letter from me that's a while ago.
I didn't get that, Mr. Ingham. I know we discussed that, but I never saw that.
All right, I'll resend it.
Okay.
Mr. Moderator, this is Town Clerk Arpin, just for the record. Representative Wells joined us at 7:17. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Town Clerk. This is moving on to item 4, to consider it if appropriate, create a blight ordinance for the town of Branford. Representative Black.
Thank you, Moderator Flanagan. Rules and Ordinance met on this last night, and there was motion to re-refer. Several members of our committee, as well as a non-committee member, Representative Toohill, are going to do some research and come up with a proposed ordinance for blight. And then when we have something, a concrete proposal, we'll discuss it further. So I put a motion to re-refer in the form, it's the committee's unanimous recommendation. So I put that in the form of a motion.
Hey, there's a motion on the floor by Representative Flanagan here. There's a motion on the floor from Representative Black to re-refer this item. Is there any discussion from members of the R.T.M? Is there any discussions from members of the public? Hearing none. Is there any no votes? Is there any no votes? Is there any abstentions?
My hand's up.
I can't see who the hand is. Who is speaking?
Brian Nichols.
Who?
Brian Nichols, member of the public.
Well, go ahead, Brian.
So my question is this: for how many years has this been going on that we can't get this done? That it's been re-referred? And that's my question to Mr. Black. How many years has this been going on that we cannot just come to a final solution that it has to be re-referred? The RTM needs to do their job. That's my question. How many years?
Mr. Nichols, we've been working on this.
Representative Black, please identify yourself when you speak.
Sorry, this Representative Black, through you, Mr. Moderator. This request the RTM has had for about 2 months now. We previously considered a blight ordinance, and it came to a full RTM vote. That was about 5 years ago, and it failed. So results don't always happen the way everybody wants them, but there was a vote on it previously. It failed, and now some members are trying again after a passage of some time. So we'll see where this goes.
So we're talking about 5 years ago, and now we're talking 5 years later, and we still can't figure this out. I mean, come on. Are you serious?
Mr. Nichols,
Think about this logically. Think about this logically. 5 years ago, and now you want to have heart surgery 5 years later, and it hasn't changed. This is your responsibility. This is your duty. You have to do it.
Look, through you, Mr. Moderator, we considered it and we rejected it previously. That was the vote, and now we're considering it again. We did our duty previously, and we're going to do our duty again.
This is Mark.
Representative Torelli, may I comment on this?
Go ahead, Representative Torelli. This is Representative Flanagan.
5 years ago, we took this up because the state had passed some type of blight ordinance, and that's why it became an issue. But then it was voted down by the R.T.M. So we did try to pass it, but we were outvoted. And I don't think it needs a lot of research. I think it should be passed. You're beating a dead horse here. It's a fact that we need that. So I agree with our speaker that this should be passed. So when it goes to committee, Representative Black, I hope that your committee okays this. Thank you.
Hey, Representative Flanagan, did Representative Riccio, did I see you want to speak to this?
Yeah, I would just take a moment and Peter or Representative Black, I would refer, through you, and I also would recommend that you mention why we are bringing it back and why we have decided not to move so quickly on it. And it's basically because there's zoning ordinances that are already in place, so the citizens have a forum to go to address the blight issues. Now, listen, I have neighbors that are pigs, and there's not one. I would love to get a blight ordinance in this town. I think we do need it. So I welcome a discussion about that. And I would support this effort. But I think, Peter, or Representative Black, might be helpful to I think it was Mr. Nichols, to at least answer why we didn't do anything 5 years ago. Not like we're just sitting on our hands, and Representative or Torelli kind of addressed
the motion, through you, Mr. Moderator, this Representative Black. I mean, the motion now is just to re-refer. Sometimes you win elections, sometimes you don't. That's what happens. We don't always agree on everything, but we did consider it before, and we looked at other items like the zoning regulations, and the judgment of majority of the R.T.M. at that time was this was not needed. It's been some years, so that judgment may change. So this is a motion to re-refer.
Okay, Representative Flanagan, any other comments or discussion on this? If not, I believe...
Dennis, yes. I have my hand up.
Go ahead, identify yourself.
You know me, Dennis. It's Nancy Wachowski on South Monterey Street.
I know, yeah.
I just want to say thank you to Representative Torelli for her comments. And yes, if this went through 5 years ago, things have changed. And the R.T.M. voted that they didn't need blight ordinance. Well, we definitely need it now. I know of 5 residences off the top of my head in the Indian Neck area and one's off Featherbed Lane that I certainly wouldn't want to live next to. And there's one house where there's raccoons and squirrels living in the house with the lady. Instead of gray gardens, it's limewood gardens. So if those aren't issues of blight, I don't know what would be. And I just urge the R.T.M. to listen to your constituents and vote yes, that we need a blight ordinance in the town of Branford. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak to this item?
Yes, I'd like
Representative Ingraham.
Representative Ingraham, go ahead.
Yeah, just, a point of information for everyone in our constituents on when we write an ordinance, it will be on our agenda for a good while, especially something extensive as a blight ordinance, because the items have to be, every line has to be revetted and run through a process to get there. So re-referring an item is keeping it on the agenda and keeping it active. If the motion tonight was to take no action or table it, then that would say that the R.T.M. is trying to stop the discussion. So just to note that re-referring means keep the discussion going, and the rules and ordinances is moving along pretty well with this item. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else wishing to speak?
Yes. So, I do, Mr. Moderator.
Representative Toohill.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Just to bring everyone up to date, the Rules and Ordinances Committee met last night. They decided to keep this going, which is an excellent idea. This coming Tuesday, I'm going to be meeting with Representative Dan Edelman and Representative Peter Henschel. And we have already gathered ordinances from 10 other towns. We're going to look at all of them, and then we're going to choose, all the highlights from each ordinance so that Branford gets, the best possible blight ordinance. Thank you. And it's going to be done as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
Okay. Any other comments or discussion? All right. We're going to... And the motion on the floor is to re-refer the item to keep it active. I think everybody spoke.
I'd like to speak again.
Mr. Nichols, go ahead. Go ahead.
So after 5 years in the R.T.M, we still can't figure this out. You guys got to understand something. You work for the people. The people vote for you. At the end of the day, this is what we're requesting. Why couldn't we figure this out 5 years ago? Why does it take 5 years to figure out a blight ordinance? That's my question.
Representative
5 years to figure out a blight ordinance? Come on.
Flanagan here. I think by re-referring, as Mr. Ingraham stated, Mr. Nichols, the committee isn't diligently working on this. So let's forget about what would happen 5 years ago and let's move on what we're doing with it right now. All right, we'll take the vote on the floor is to re-refer this item. Is there any no votes? Is there any no votes? Is there any abstentions? This item is re-referred. Item number 5, to consider and if appropriate, create an ordinance pertaining to unused capital funds. Representative Black.
Thank you. We asked that this be re-referred. That was the unanimous vote of the committee, and I put that in the form of a motion.
Motion on the floor to re-refer this item. Is there any discussion from members of the R.T.M? Any discussion from members of the public? Hearing none, we'll take a vote to re-refer this item. Is there any no votes? Is there any no votes? Is there any abstentions? This item is re-referred. Representative Flanagan, item number 6, to consider and if appropriate, approve a lease of certain sanitary sewer easements for owners of 15, 18, and 19 Etzel Road. Representative Alphone.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The town has easements recorded on the land records for these properties. However, the town no longer has a need for the sewer easements. The executrix of the property is looking to sell the properties and would like to remove the encumbrances on the property. This was approved by the WPCA, and it was also approved by our committee unanimously 6-0. I'd put that forward to the full R.T.M.
Motion on the floor to approve item 6. Is there any discussions from members of the R.T.M? Is there any discussion from members of the public? Hearing none, We'll be voting on this a motion to approve this. Is there any no votes? Is there any no votes? Is there any abstentions? Therefore, the sewer easement passes. Representative Flanagan, moving on to item 7, to consider and if appropriate, approve a contract between the BOE and the school administrators. Representative Preet.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is Representative Preet. The Education Committee met remotely to hear this item on Monday, November 2nd. At that time, a detailed presentation was made by Superintendent Hernandez, Chief Operating Officer Neal, and the Board of Education Chair Friends. The highlights of the contract, and I know I see Mr. Neal's on the call, so keep me honest. There's a general wage increase of 1%. The administrators chose to have a 1-year contract as opposed to 3. There was recognition for their work over the past year dealing with the pandemic. Their insurance contribution was raised to 19%. And there was a new position, social and emotional learning coordinator. This is actually a reallocated position. It's not a new hire. It was formerly the Dean of Students. And our committee voted 6-0 to approve, and I put that in the form of a motion.
Okay, Representative Flanagan here. There's a motion on the floor by Representative Preet to approve this 1-year contract with the school administrators. Is there any discussion from members of the R.T.M.?
Mr. Moderator, Representative Sullivan.
Representative Sullivan, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I just wanted to speak briefly. I made comments on some of the previous contracts that had come before this body and the types of language that were included or taken out to be in compliance with the Janus decision. And I just wanted to commend the parties on this contract for doing what I see as a better job of being in compliance with Janus and not actually just striking out the payment of agency fees. This contract included some new language that says, upon the submission of a voluntary written authorization, that the board would deduct the agency fees or membership dues. Now, I would prefer that it would be language that would allow for people to opt out. I think that would still be compliant with mandatory agents, not allowing mandatory agency fees, but I do see this as an improvement of some of the other contracts that had come before us from the town. And the big thing for me is I don't think that our union should have free riders in them where people don't pay for their representation and still get the benefits of a negotiated contract by their union. So I do think that this contract is better. And unlike the previous contracts that had come before us, I will be voting in favor of this one. Thank you.
Okay, Representative Flanagan, again, anybody from the R.T.M. still wishing to speak to this? Anybody from the public wishing to speak?
Yes, Dennis is Representative Riccio.
Go ahead, Representative Riccio.
Mr. Moderator, can I do a screen share?
This is Town Clerk Arpin. If the moderator permits it, Mark, you can hit the lower portion of your screen where it says share screen. Do you see that?
Yeah.
And then you would be able to share your.
Gotcha.
Your document.
All right, so this is Representative Flanagan. Go ahead, Representative Riccio.
Okay, can everyone see my screen, my document?
Yes.
So, 2013, when I was elected to the RTM, one of the very first RTM meetings I attended was in November or December when the school administrator's contract came up for renewal. I was very new, I was very green, and actually it was around 2009, maybe 2009, 2000. And at the time, I think there were 21 Democrats and 9 Republicans on this body. And the school administrators had negotiated what I thought was a very unfair contract at a time when we were entering the Great Recession. And it was a very, very difficult economic period of time, if you recall. And I got up, not even really realizing what I was almost saying, but I said, I'm looking at these numbers, at these school administrator salaries, and I can't believe what I'm seeing. But not only do I can't believe what I'm seeing, I can't believe the raises they're getting. When people are out of work, when you have people out of jobs, companies closing, mortgage companies closing, mortgage payments being paid late. So fast forward 10, 11 years later, and here we are dealing with a worldwide pandemic crisis. And we've got the school administrators coming back and saying, we want a 1-year contract with a 1% raise. And I'm going to share some numbers with you. And I had to put this together pretty quickly. And I don't have all the numbers. And it doesn't even go back to 2009. But I just want everyone to take a hard look at these numbers. And it doesn't even go back to 2009. And back in 2013, a school administrator was making $149,000. And we're going to pay that school administrator $174,000 next year. $25,000 increase from 2013 to 2021. And I'll go right down the line. Middle school principal, $140,000 in 2013. Now it's going to be $165,000. Director of Student Services, $133,000. It's going to be $165,000. Elementary principal, $130,000 in 2013. Now it's $154,000. High school assistant principal, $127,000. High school assistant principal, now $150,000. A middle school assistant principal will go to $147,000. Elementary assistant principal, $118,000. Now will be $140,000. A coordinator of related services, which I think was director of pupil services, I'm not sure, is $140,000. A curriculum coordinator, which is, we didn't have that in 2013, is now $140,000. Director of adult education, $111,000, now $132,000. And we have 3 new positions: an SEL coordinator, $121,000, director of technology, $142,000, and an athletic director now, $111,000. Take a really good look at those numbers, everybody. Take a really good look at those numbers. And I'm going to ask some, and here are my concerns. You know, as you see, I recapped the annual increases. The enrollment at our schools is down 16% over the past several years. Less kids. How do we tell parents? Because I don't know what to tell them. How do we tell parents that are struggling during this extremely difficult pandemic situation that school administrators are receiving a raise? And they'll probably get another very good raise next year. How do we tell parents with children in the Branford school system that have been laid off? What do we tell them? I don't know what to tell them. And I'd like someone to help me tell them. How many parents with children in the Branford school systems that own businesses that have closed or might have to close, or those that work in retail or restaurants or other service industries that have been creamed in this pandemic situation? Can someone tell me how this is fair, that these administrators are getting any type of raise? And why is it only people in the state of Connecticut, or the people that work for the state of Connecticut, are getting raises, but the only ones that are getting raises are state employees and town employees? I can tell you as a business owner, and I'm in a technology business, my staff is not getting any raises this year, and they know it. And the only reason I would consider supporting this contract, which I'm not, is the binding arbitration rope that's around our heads. And for those that don't understand that, it means if this body does not approve this contract automatically goes to binding arbitration, and a bunch of lawyers get together and decide it. While I'm at it, here's a message for the people that didn't vote for me on November 3rd. Because if I won the seat for the 102nd District State Representative a few weeks ago, one of my goals was to go to Hartford and fight to remove the binding arbitration rope that's around towns and municipalities' heads so we can negotiate a union contract and not be forced to approve unfair contracts. This is unfair. I will not be supporting this contract. I'm willing to send it to binding arbitration, and I encourage my colleagues on this body to not support this contract. Thank you.
Okay, and is there any further discussion from members of the R.T.M? Dennis Flanagan here. Is there any discussion from members of the public? Hearing none, because this is a contract, the clerk will tell, this will be a full recall.
Mr. Moderator?
Roll call vote.
Mr. Moderator, this is Representative Alphone.
Representative Alphone, go ahead.
Through you, Representative Preet, what was the committee report on this again?
I'm sorry, the vote?
Yes.
It was 6-0. One of our committee members was not present.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Representative Flanagan here. As I stated, this will be a full roll call vote. Voting yes in favor of the contract, voting no, you are against. Go ahead, take the full roll call vote, clerk.
Okay, Representative Edelman,
Representative Edelman is voting yes.
Representative Alphone,
Representative Alphone, no.
Representative Anderson,
Can you come back to me? I'm still thinking.
okay, Representative Austin,
Representative Austin, no.
Representative Black,
Representative Black, yes.
Representative Brockett,
Representative Brockett votes yes.
Representative Conklin,
Representative Conklin votes yes.
Representative Everson,
Representative Everson votes yes.
Representative Erlanger,
Representative Erlanger votes yes.
Representative Greenberg,
Representative Greenberg, yes.
Representative Haken,
Representative Haken votes yes.
Representative Healy,
Representative Healy votes yes.
Representative Henschel,
Representative Henschel votes yes.
Representative Hines,
Representative Hines votes no.
Representative Ingraham,
Representative Ingraham votes no.
Representative Jackson,
Jackson votes yes.
Representative Kelly,
Representative Kelly is absent.
Sorry. Representative Leach votes yes. Representative Preet,
Representative Preet votes yes.
Representative Riccio,
Representative Riccio votes no.
Representative Sember,
Representative Sember votes yes.
Representative Shrestha,
Representative Shrestha votes yes.
Representative Sires, Representative Sires, Does anyone know if she's still with us? I'll come back.
This is Town Clerk
Simro?
Arpin. I do believe she is on the call. Thank you. And just for the record, while I'm speaking, also ex officio Selectman Higgins snuck in on us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Representative Sires, are you here? Representative Sumro.
Representative Sumro, yes.
Representative Stepanik.
Representative Stepanik, no.
Representative Sullivan.
Representative Sullivan votes yes.
Representative Torelli.
Representative Torelli votes yes.
Representative Toohill.
Representative Frank Toohill votes no.
Representative Wells.
Representative Wells votes yes.
Okay, and going back to Representative Anderson.
I'm going to vote yes with
Okay. With reservations. And is Representative Sires back? No. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 no votes. And 1, 2, 3, 4.
I think there's 8, Madam Clerk. There's 8.
8?
Yeah, that's what I can.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, I'm not seeing the 8. I have, for no votes, I have Representative Alphone, Representative Austin, Representative Hines, Representative Ingraham, Representative Riccio, Representative Stepanik, and Representative Toohill. 1, 2.
How did Representative Hines vote?
Representative Hines voted no.
No. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm still only seeing 7. Let me circle them. 2, 3, 4, 5, 7.
Yeah, that's correct, ma'am. I'm sorry. I stand corrected. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. I was getting nervous. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Representative Flanagan here. What was the total on that, Representative Leach?
16, 17, 18, 19, 20 yes, 7 no.
20 yes, 7 no. Dennis Flanagan here. Okay, the contract is approved. Moving on to item number 8. To consider and if appropriate, approve a request from the Finance Director for the following budget transfer. From contingency, $150,000 to operating transfer out FEMA, $150,000. Representative Black.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. It's Representative Black. Ways and Means met and approved this unanimously. The FEMA fund is probably better termed the disaster fund, and we'll actually expect additional transfers into this fund. But this is to take a fund that we use to take extraordinary expenses out of the ordinary budgets of the departments and charge it to this account. We've, of course, had a number of emergencies here. We've got COVID expenses. We had Isaias hurricane, and we had the microburst. Well, so this is adding money to that account. We'll still have additional transfers into that account this year. The finance director is hopeful we'll receive some more federal or state dollars to make up some of these expenses. But anyway, I put that in the form of a motion for this to approve.
Motion on the floor by Representative Black. This is Representative Flanagan to approve the transfer. Is there any discussion from members of the RTM?
Yes, Representative Moderator Flanagan, this is Representative Brockett.
Representative Brockett, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Moderator. Following up on Chairman Black from the Ways and Means Committee, we asked for a printout from the finance director of money in and money out for this fund that Representative Black so appropriately noted. It's really a disaster fund. And we have received some money from under the CARE Act from the federal government. There is a chance that some other monies may be received. So there is available a one sheet of paper that the finance director put together for us on the Ways and Means Committee. Anybody would like to see it, they can just send me an email. I'll email it to them, or they can get it from the finance director. But it does show the money in and the money out, and I will be voting in favor of this. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Representative Flanagan here again. Anybody else from the R.T.M. wishing to speak to this item? Anyone from the public wishing to speak to this item? Hearing none, we'll take a vote on this. Is there any no votes? Is there any no votes? Is there any abstentions? Hearing none, this transfer passes. Representative Flanagan again. Item number 9, to consider and if appropriate, approve requests from the first selectman for the following budget transfer from advertising, printing, and binding, $200 to Women and Families Center, $200. Representative Alphone.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The town makes a few charitable donations every year through the First Selectman's office. Generally, we budget $300 a year for the Women's and Family Center. Due to an oversight, we committed to $500 this fiscal year. So this transfer will cover the shortfall of the additional $200. But there will be a $200 reduction in the next fiscal year budget. This was approved in committee unanimously with a 6-0 vote. I'd put that forward to the full R.T.M.
Okay, Representative Flanagan here is a motion on the floor to approve this transfer. Is there any discussion from members of the R.T.M.? Is there any discussion from members of the public?
Mr. Moderator, this is Representative Sullivan. I'm sorry, I couldn't get the mute button. I just have a question through you to Representative Alphone.
Go ahead, Representative Sullivan.
Just out of curiosity, could we know a little bit about services that the Women and Family Center offers?
Representative Alphone, Representative Flanagan here. Can you answer that?
Representative Sullivan, I do not have any details on that. I don't know if Jamie's on the line, if he could speak to it. But I do know it's a yearly contribution that we've made, I want to say for the last couple years at least. I just don't have any specifics on it.
This is Representative Sullivan. That's fine. I was mostly curious, and for my own information, I mean, it sounds like an organization that I would support larger donations to, but I just wanted to get an idea. Thank you.
Sorry.
Selectman Cosgrove, did I hear you?
Yeah. Selectman Cosgrove here. So, Chris, they provide a number of social services, and they actually have been more recently expanding services into Branford, and they've been working closely on a number of initiatives with our counseling center as well to help families in need. As far as specific programs, I could more than happy to forward you the information that they provide, their annual report to the R.T.M, which is usually you probably, if you refer to the budget backup, you'll find that information in there as well.
This is Representative Sullivan. Thank you, Selectman Cosgrove. I would love to see that information, and while I have the floor, I would encourage you not to reduce the funding next year reflecting this increase. So
Actually, just to further clarify, it's not it wouldn't be a reduction. They ended up just billing us. They ended up billing us at the end of the year to cover 2 fiscal years, and we paid for it all out of the previous fiscal year, where we were trying to split it over the 2 years. So we're not reducing. It's just that we're going to have available balance in this current fiscal year. Thank you.
This is Representative Sullivan. Thank you for the additional clarification.
Any other comments from members? That's just Representative Flanagan. Any other comments from members of the R.T.M? Any discussion from the public?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Mr. Nichols, go right ahead.
I'm just wondering how much of that is going to go towards care for fathers and children. Not only, women, but in all reality, childcare for fathers that are single fathers.
Representative Nichols, I believe the transfer spells out women in family centers. I don't see anything in there pertaining to fathers.
I find that very sexist and biased, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So we don't have single fathers that are taking care of their kids. Are you kidding me? This is 2020. So this needs to be really looked at. So we're just going to obligate all this money
Yeah, no,
to
I believe
just women. And no, don't interrupt me. I didn't interrupt you.
Oh my God, this guy.
We're only going to establish this money for women and their children, but it has nothing to do with a single father that may be raising a daughter, a son, or maybe 2 or 3 or 4. How does that work out?
Dennis?
Representative Alphone, we don't have any, Representative Flanagan here. I don't really have the answer to that, but,
well, then,
Dennis?
Yes, go.
Dennis?
Yes.
All right. Dennis, this is Nancy Wachowski. I had volunteered with a similar program, and it's really, they just haven't renamed it. It's been for years, just like the program, Women, Infant, and Children. It's for families, for fathers who need help with their children. If you go to the organization and you were to pass all the criteria, it's for families, just mothers. It's for fathers also.
Okay. Thank you very much, Representative. Anybody else have any comments on this? Hearing none? Who's that? Selectman Cosgrove?
I just wanted to thank Nancy for clarifying that. That was the point I was going to make. That's a carryover name for them, but they do provide services to the family. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else wishing to speak to this item? Hearing none, is there any no votes? Is there any no votes? Is there any abstentions? All right, this item carries. Moving on to item 10, to consider if inappropriate, approve a request from the first selectman for the following budget transfer from salaries, $16,760 to material handling, $16,760. Representative Phone.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Although admin services generally doesn't hear the solid waste items, this ended up on our agenda with a copy and paste error, and the committee did hear it. So I'll give you the committee report from our admin services meeting on November 10th. This transfer would cover 2 months of bills that were in dispute for the previous fiscal year. The requested amount would close out fiscal year 20 overages, which were incurred due to an increased cost for recycling in part. This was approved in committee with a 6-0 vote, and I'd put that forward to the full R.T.M.
Representative Flanagan here. There's a motion on the floor to approve this transfer. Is there any discussion from members of the R.T.M.?
Mr. Moderator, this is Representative Conklin.
Go ahead, Representative Conklin.
Yeah, and I need to apologize that the Public Services Committee did not hear it because I didn't notice it on the agenda. But I will just reinforce that the chair of the Solid Waste Commission had sent a letter informing me that there would be bills coming later because there were bills that were in dispute that were then settled. And clearly, throughout the past years, our expenses for solid waste have gone up. And I would say, I'm just for the record, I am hoping that in the coming year, there will be a bigger market for our recyclables because we've been paying to have the recycles taken away. And it looks as if with all of us staying home and ordering online, there is a much bigger need for cardboard. And so maybe we can recycle our paper and cardboard and actually make some money. That was just an indication from an article I saw today. And I clearly would like to support this transfer.
Representative Flanagan here. Anybody else from the RTM wishing to speak to this item? Anyone from the public wishing to speak? Hearing none, is there any no votes? Is there any no votes? Is there any abstentions? Hearing none, this transfer passes. Moving on to item 11, to consider and if appropriate, approve request from the tax collector for the following budget transfer. From contingency, $66,558 to overtime, $48,798, and to consulting, $17,760. Representative Alphone. I believe, well, actually, Representative Black.
Hello.
Both of you guys heard this, to my knowledge, correct?
That's correct. And I believe we both passed the same motion. At the time this request was made, there was not a vacancy in the tax collector's office. At this time, there is. So there should be some funds available from regular wages and salaries to move into some of the overtime account. But so what we did was we reduced the request from contingency by $10,000 to $56,558. So the overtime amount is $38,798, and the consulting amount is $17,760. And that passed unanimously, so I put that in the form of a motion.
Motion on the floor to approve this transfer. Any discussion? Representative Alphone, your committee also heard this, and
Yes, Mr. Moderator, just to add, Ways and Means heard this item previous to our admin services meeting. And we basically took their motion, their recommendation, and mirrored it, and it was approved unanimously in committee as well.
and Representative Flanagan, thank you. Representative Alphone, is there any discussion from members of the RTM?
Mr. Moderator, this is Representative Preet.
Go ahead, Representative Preet.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My initial inclination was to vote no to this transfer. However, I did do some additional homework, and I recognize that the vote no is not in the best interest of the town. But there appears to be some numerous challenges within our tax department, but there also is a strong effort by some individuals, specifically the finance director and the assistant finance director, to try and right the ship. I went back and reviewed the administrative services meeting, and Mr. Finch gives a compelling argument to support this transfer, and also recognize that it's going to be an ongoing effort. But the only thing I want to add is I would expect that the suggestions that are being made by the consultant are rather quickly implemented and not just simply put in a book. And I would implore that our body and the Board of Finance keeps a keen eye on future developments in this department. Thank you.
Representative Flanagan, or anybody else from the RTM wishing to speak to this item?
Representative Sullivan.
Representative Sullivan, go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Moderator, to Representative Black. I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear where the 10,000 was coming out from and the reason behind it. I'm sorry, it broke up a little bit on my end. I just wanted to rehear that.
Okay, through you, Mr. Moderator.
Go ahead,
Representative Black. There's a vacancy right now. There was a vacancy prior. There was a hire that was made. That employee did not work out. So before his probationary period ended, he was let go. So there'll be 2 or 3 months worth of unused wages as we go through the hiring process. So we're anticipating another transfer of $10,000 from regular wages and salaries into overtime. And that'll probably come before the Board of Finance at the end of this month, and then come to us in December for the $10,000. There may be a clearer idea of other needs as well at that point. I don't know. This amount was going to carry us through, I believe, the end of January. So we'll be a little short if we don't backfill this. This is to cover our remaining workers, union workers in the tax department who are having to work extra with the vacancy, as well as the assistant finance director is also entitled to overtime for the time that she's been putting into the tax office. Does that answer your question, Representative Sullivan?
Yeah, this is Representative Sullivan. Thank you for that clarification. Like I said, it broke up a little bit on the tech side on my end, so I just didn't hear the beginning. Mr. Moderator, may I just make a comment in general about the item as well?
Representative Flanagan, go ahead. Representative Sullivan.
Thank you. So it's my understanding that these transfers are necessary due to some longtime employees leaving the office and taking with them a lot of institutional knowledge, and there needs to be some efforts to get some newer employees on board in this situation, or some training and other things to get things up to speed in what is obviously a very important office to our town and the revenue that the town generates. So I'm supportive of investing in the tax collector's office. I think we should be expending these funds, and I'll be supporting this transfer. Thank you.
Okay, Representative Flanagan here again. Anybody else from the R.T.M. wishing to speak to this item?
Mr. Moderator, Representative Edelman.
Go ahead, Representative Edelman.
Thank you. I would echo the thoughts of Representative Sullivan. The tax collector's been having to do more with working with less. There have been positions that are no longer filled by people that had been there before. In essence, I think it's safe to say that most of the experience in that tax office has been wiped out during her tenure, and I would urge this body to approve the transfer. Thank you.
Hey, Representative Flanagan here. Anybody else from the R.T.M. wishing to speak to this item?
Yes, I'd like to speak, Mr. Moderator.
Go ahead.
Yes. First of all, I think that currently everybody in the tax department is doing they're doing a very good job, I believe. It's very difficult in there, I'm sure, with all the accounts. There must be, 30, 40,000 accounts here in the town with the property taxes and with the car taxes, as well as the sewer bills, so it's very complicated. I understand that, but I'm gonna move that we cut the overtime by another 10,000 because I'd like to see it end. I'd like to see some kind of an end point to it. Now it's already been cut 10,000, and I'd like to thank the Ways and Means and the Administrative Services Committee for taking 10,000 off the overtime. So it's now down to 38,798, but I'd like to see it reduce 10,000 more to 28,798. And the reason I say that is because, first of all, and this was a good idea, what the tax department decided to do was to open a lockbox. So all your tax payments, all the checks that we mail now, instead of going to the Branford tax department, the P.O. box, it goes up to a P.O. box in Boston. So all the envelopes, the thousands and thousands of checks, all the payments are processed now in a different office. And so there was a question asked of the tax collector. She says that the Boston lockbox actually cuts the hours worked per day just for opening the envelopes, processing the checks, she said, by 4 or 5 hours per day. So there's a bunch of hours that have been freed up, right? That's about 20 hours a week that's been freed up there in the tax office. The other thing that was stated was that So at the time that this was originally proposed, this was going to pay for 10 hours of overtime per week by the assistant tax collector and 10 hours overtime per week by the assistant finance director. It was supposed to carry all the way through the end of June. That's the end of the fiscal year, the 2021 fiscal year. So, it's been cut back 10,000, but I think it should be cut like another 10,000. The other thing that's going to help that office in the near future is that I believe that the town's HR director, she's on the line with us now on the Zoom call. She can speak to this if she wants, but there is a current vacant position in the tax office. And I believe she is working to get that person, on board as soon as possible. So there's going to be somebody else working there as well. So for those reasons, and it's true, it's a lot of work, and I believe they are all working together and doing well. But I'm just a little bit, I don't like to approve that much overtime in advance. I mean, if they really need more overtime for next spring, they can always come back to the RTM and ask for more. Okay, thank you.
Representative Flanagan here. Representative Toohill, is that a motion you're making?
That's correct, Mr. Moderator.
Is there a second on that motion?
Mr. Moderator, this is Representative Riccio. I will second that, but I also would like to make a comment, please.
Go ahead, Representative Riccio.
So first of all, I will second that motion. I did attend the administrative committee meeting a week ago, kind of get my head and arms around why we're spending all this money and overtime money and consultant money with the at tax collectors department. And so, typically when you bring in consultants, and especially when you bring in an outside service provider, which is what we're doing now, which is a lockbox service, which from what I understand, there's a transaction cost for every collection. Usually there should be a justification in those costs. And in other words, a reduction in our operating costs or expenses. So I asked that question to the tax collector, and if I recollect, I'm not sure I got the answer I was looking for. That there didn't seem to be a vote of confidence that we would actually save money. As a matter of fact, I asked very directly, would we be able to reduce staff? And I don't think that was the case. So I do have some concerns that we're spending a lot of money on consultants. And I understand we're in a COVID situation. And I also understand that there was a policy manual that could not be located. And that's a little bit concerning to me that, an important document like that, what happened to it? So I certainly want to support the tax department and give them what they need for resources. It's a very important, probably one of the most important departments in our town, because it's what we allow us to pay our bills and salaries and everything else. So I do support Representative Toohill's reduction in the overtime, but I think as a body, we need to kind of keep an eye on what's going on with this department, because I think a bunch of people have, and I'm one of them, we have some concerns. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, this is Chairman Black.
Representative Black, go ahead.
Yeah, I oppose this motion. First of all, to Representative Toohill, I know the finance director did say that this money would carry through the end of the year. And my impression initially was the same as yours, that he meant the fiscal year. He did not. He meant the calendar year. As I said before, this money was meant to carry through the end of January. We've already reduced it some. So we're going to need an additional transfer, likely of the $10,000. Representative Riccio is correct. We'll have about half of an FTE at some point that we may be able to save due to the lockbox that was the tax collector's statement to us at Ways and Means. But right now we're down at least one full FTE and somebody who needs to get trained once we make that hire as well. Again, this office is too important to not give it the funding and the support that it needs. This is our primary revenue generator. So I urge opposition to the amendment. Thank you.
Representative Flanagan, anybody
Mr.
else?
Moderator, sorry, this is Don. Representative Conklin,
Go ahead. Representative Conklin, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I need to echo Representative Black's comments that this is the town's largest revenue generator. And though I may have concerns about the department, and I worry about the staffing in the department right now, any savings you might be expecting in the lockbox is a guess at best. And I would rather overfund the tax department in this particular time of uncertainty on what our tax collection rate is going to be. And then at budget time next year, we should have a better idea what the savings will be using the lockbox, what the savings might be for salaries. And we'll also know what our costs will be, because there are costs per unit that this outside service will charge us. And I think we can better handle that at budget time and go through this year, fund, even if we have to overfund it. So I would ask that we vote down Representative Toohill's motion. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak to this?
Yes, Moderator.
Representative Austin.
This is Representative Austin. I would just like to say I agree with the last few comments that have been made, and that this is an important department and we do need to fund it. Having said that, I would really hope and like to see that the money we're paying for a consultant is for actual consulting work and developing a policy and procedure manual, and not just working as another employee because they're so short-staffed. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, Representative Braca.
Representative Braca, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Through you, I stand in opposition to Mr. Toohill's amendment for a variety of different reasons. I think Representative Preet laid out the argument best. If you had an opportunity to attend the Ways and Means meeting or the Administrative Services meeting, Mr. Finch made a compelling argument of why we need this money for the tax department. Representative Black followed up on that, as did Representative Conklin, and I support their comments. I'd also note for the record that the overtime money that we are approving tonight, some of that money goes back and pays for overtime that was used in July, August, and September. So that's the reason that we're going to run out of money at the end of January, or at the end of December, or at the end of January. And thus, as Representative Black issued, there may be another request for $10,000 coming. But the tax department is the lifeblood of Branford. And to Representative Austin's question, one of the things Finance Director Finch stated was that the consultant, as well as the tax collector, would be working on essentially a playbook going forward. So in the event that somebody else comes in and takes the department over, they will have procedures and policies to follow. So I stand in opposition to the amendment, but will support the original motion. Thank you.
All right. Representative Flanagan. Anybody else from the R.T.M. wishing to speak to this item?
Representative Sullivan.
I do, yes.
Representative Sullivan first.
Yeah.
You go ahead, Chris.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Thank
Chris.
you, Representative. Thank you, Moderator Flanagan. Thank you, Representative Toohill. I am opposed to Representative Toohill's motion. The only reason I'm okay with the other 10,000 reduction of overtime is because I understand that there's some salaries left from a position that wasn't being paid because there was nobody there. I do find it interesting that we're acting on these, what I've called in the past, kind of ghost salaries, where in the past there hasn't been anything done about those types of positions that have floated and just been spent on who knows what. So I think it's interesting that now we're trying to use that, or some of my colleagues are trying to use those dollars. I would not want to reduce the funding to the tax collector's office any further. I think it's a total misstep. This office is super important for our town. There's been all sorts of different dealings and extensions and changes due to COVID, and the situation has affected with people making their payments, having to communicate that information out to taxpayers in the town, and then dealing with the potential shortfalls of people that have lost their jobs and are unable to pay those tax bills. And I go back to the point I said on the original motion, when you lose a lot of seasoned veteran staff, you have to invest in training those staff, and anybody should know that there's a steep learning curve there, and the output of those new employees is not going to match the employees that were there previously. So I think it's short-sighted to try to make further reductions at this point, and I am opposed to Representative Toohill's amendment, and I will not be voting for that amendment. Thank you.
Representative Toohill, I believe you were willing to speak on that.
Yes, thank you very much for calling on me, Mr. Moderator. So, from what the minority leader Brockett stated just a couple minutes ago, he said that there was already overtime spent on this in July, August, and September. I mean, the RTM, is getting this request tonight for the first time, and the charter says that the town treasurer cannot issue any checks unless the money is there. So, do you have any more information on this, Representative Brockett?
Moderator Flanagan, this is Representative Brockett. I am passing along the invite. I understand what the charter says. This is not the first time somebody's come before the RTM asking money that's been spent. They did it with legal fees a few months ago, but the finance director reported that there was overtime used in July and August, and part of this money was going to pay that overtime. So that's a separate issue, as you well know. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Anyone else from the RTM?
Mr. Moderator, Representative Edelman.
Who's speaking now?
Representative Edelman.
Representative Edelman, go ahead.
I oppose the further reduction for a few reasons. Most importantly, the reasons articulated for the request for the further reductions are the reasons that the initial reduction occurred to begin with. The articulation as to the need for further reductions was just, I think there should be further reductions. But that argument was made and reductions were made. So I don't see any basis for further reductions. I do find it interesting in my short tenure on this body that the level of scrutiny of the tax department seems to be at a higher level than with other departments. And there seems that there's some type of animus against the tax department, tax office department, for tax collectors department for a reason I'm not certain of. But I would oppose any further reduction for the reasons that have been stated. Thank you.
Okay, Representative Flanagan. Anyone else from the RTM wishing to speak to this?
Representative Flanagan, this is Representative Conklin one more time.
Representative Conklin, go ahead.
Just as a point of clarification, It is my understanding that the overtime that was paid was from the original budgeted overtime. And this money is being added so that we can have overtime going into the future. Not that we spent this particular overtime money. So,
Point of clarification, please, Mr. Moderator.
Representative Toohill?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first thing, right? Well, it's my understanding that part of the purpose of the overtime request tonight is to establish an overtime account for the tax department. There is no overtime account right now for the tax department. So how could there have been overtime already paid out, Thank you.
Anyone else from the RTM wishing to speak?
Yes,
to
Mr. Moderator, this is
Riccio.
this is Representative Riccio. Let's remember something, folks. If the tax collecting department needs to get more money for additional overtime, they can come back and get it. It's an easy process. Let's not spend money that we don't have to spend. There's no risk here. Very little risk. This is, being prudent with your neighbors and your citizens' money. We can always come back and give them money.
Mr. Moderator, Representative Black.
Go ahead, Representative Black.
First, two things. One, to Representative Sullivan's point, this was not a ghost position. This was a position that became vacated within actually days of our meeting at Ways and Means at the beginning of this month. So when the original request was made, it was in September that the tax collector made, or October, to the Board of Finance. The position was filled. They were hoping that individual would work out. He didn't. But he was hired for, I think, 3 months. He was there and the position was filled. To Representative Riccio's remark, it's already November, and this is just going to carry us through December and January. When we're objecting to money that may need to be spent before we authorize it, if we don't authorize it and they need to spend it, then we've got nobody but ourselves to blame here, because we need to keep this department running. And we spent at least an hour going over this with the tax collector, et cetera. And it was a unanimous view of the committee that this was the amount that they needed to go forward. So again, I urge opposition to any further reduction.
All right, Representative Flanagan. Anybody else from the RTM wishing to speak to this amendment? Anybody from the public?
Representative Flanagan, this is Representative Phone.
Go ahead, Representative Phone.
Through you, Mr. Moderator, to Representative Toohill. This overtime account is new in the tax collector's budget. Previous overtime and consulting fees did come out of the HR department's budget. So I'm not sure that the money that we're asking for tonight was previously spent on overtime. I think it was paid for out of the HR department.
Okay, Representative Flanagan again. Anyone else from the RTM? Anybody from the public wishing to speak to this?
I'd like to make a comment.
Yes, I would like to. Oh, go ahead.
Let's see. We have two people raised. Mr. Petrowski, you want to speak to this?
Sure. I would just like to say, it's a very easy process here. We're sitting here arguing overtime. Why don't we waive the credit card fee or the debit card fee, where more people would just pay by credit card or debit card, and it would go right into the bank account, and it would automatically get charged to whatever it has to get charged to, when people don't have to open mail. It's an $89 fee. I pay my taxes in cash just for the simple reason that I don't want to pay the $89. So figure out what the $89 fee is times to what people pay, and maybe we could resolve this. I mean, I don't know why you has to have a fee. There's no fee for paying by check, and there's no fee for paying by cash. Why do we have to have a fee for paying by credit card or debit card, where a lot of people would just do it and we could alleviate a lot of in-office work by opening mail? I mean, did that ever come into play? Did anyone ever think of that? I mean, maybe that's what the credit card company, maybe you could find somebody who could do it cheaper, but maybe that's a route to take. I mean, if anyone ever thought of that, maybe that's something to think about. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak to this?
Dennis?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Nancy Witkowski. I was going to say typically the same thing. I paid my taxes. I was going to do it by my credit card, debit card, and it came up $89.95. I was like crazy. And I was like, I'm not paying that. So I called the tax office, and the woman I got was very nice. Oh, okay. Are you hearing me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So the lady was very nice. She said, no, pay by check right out of your checking account. So you put your routing number in, your check number. It was 95 cents.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak to this item, the amendment that Representative Toohill put on the floor?
I'd like to make a quick comment, please.
Mr. Cook, go right ahead.
Well, I just want to say in a general sense, we're about ready to move into the citizen petition and letters items. And I want you to remember that you just spent 45 minutes discussing $10,000. When you consider these citizen petitions, which represent tens of millions of dollars. And you guys probably don't want to get through them fast enough, but you're going to take your time tonight, I guarantee it. So the reality is that you just spent 45 minutes discussing $10,000 as we move into the citizens petitions. Just a reminder.
And this is Nancy again. I just want to say, you just cut me off. I was like in the middle of a sentence. Did I miss something?
No, we can hear you okay.
All right. So you thought I was done. Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Anybody else wishing to speak to this amendment?
It was quite rude, but that's okay.
Nancy, it's Representative Greenberg. I actually think you were speaking and then your phone actually kind of cut out. So that's what happened.
Okay, that's why I said, can you hear me? Because I had said about...
No, so we didn't hear the end of what you were saying.
Excuse me. Did you hear where I said it only cost me 95 cents?
And then you got cut off right after that.
Okay. The last comment, thank you, Lindsay. The last comment I said was, that's not on the tax department's website. It just gives you the option to pay by credit card. It does not give you the option to pay right out of your checking account. So who's ever handling their website, if they put that on there, you would be able to, people could do that for 95 cents instead of 50 for mailing it. And that would save on a lot of time. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Is there any further discussion on this item now? The amendment from Representative Toohill? Hearing none, we're voting on the motion from Representative Toohill to reduce the overtime by an additional $10,000. It sounds like that we're going to need a roll call vote on this based on some of the comments. So the clerk will take a roll call vote on this. A yes vote is to reduce an additional $10,000 from the overtime. A no vote is against it.
Okay, and just to clarify, this is on Representative Toohill's motion, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Representative Edelman.
Representative Edelman, no.
Representative Alphone.
Representative Alphone, no.
Representative Anderson.
Come back to me, please. I'm still thinking about it.
Representative Austin.
Representative Austin, can you come back to me as well?
Representative Black.
No.
Representative Brockett.
Representative Brockett votes no.
Representative Conklin.
Representative Conklin votes no.
Representative Everson.
Representative Everson votes no.
Representative Erlanger.
Representative Erlanger votes no.
Representative Greenberg.
Representative Greenberg, no.
Representative Haken,
Representative Haken votes no.
Representative Healy,
Representative Healy votes no.
Representative Henschel,
Representative Henschel votes no.
Representative Hines,
Representative Hines votes no.
Representative Ingraham,
Representative Ingraham votes no.
Representative Jackson,
Jackson votes no.
Representative Leach votes no. Representative Preet,
Representative Preet votes yes.
Representative Ricchio,
Representative Ricchio, yes.
Representative Sember,
Representative Sember, no.
Representative Shrestha,
Representative Shrestha votes no.
Representative Sires, is she back?
Representative Sires, yes.
Representative Sumro,
Representative Sumro, no.
Representative Stepanik,
Stepanik votes yes.
Representative Sullivan,
Representative Sullivan voting no.
Representative Torelli,
Representative Torelli votes no.
Representative Toohill,
Yeah, this is Representative Frank Toohill voting yes.
and Representative Wells.
Representative Wells votes no.
Okay, Representative Anderson,
Representative Anderson votes no.
and Representative Austin.
Representative Austin votes yes.
Okay. I believe we have 22 no votes and 6 yes votes.
Okay, Representative Toohill's amended motion fails. Now we're back to the initial motion on the floor. Any further discussion on that? If not, we will vote on it. Is there any no votes? Is there any no votes? Is there
Yes.
any?
I am voting no. Representative Toohill, no.
Representative Ricchio is voting no.
All right, we have 2 no votes. Representative Toohill and Representative Stepanik is voting no. Anyone else voting no?
Representative Austin is voting no.
I got Austin. Who else?
Austin.
Representative Sires, no.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyone else no voting? Okay, it looks like the initial motion does pass. Any abstentions? Okay. The initial motion that came out of committee passes. Moving on to item 12, letters and petitions. We'll start with Rules and Ordinance Committee. Representative Black. Representative Black.
Yep, thank you. I had to unmute myself there. So we had a number of letters here. First one regarding addition to legal fees and oversight of legal fees in general. It's an agreement between the minority leader and the majority leader that they will meet quarterly to review legal expenditures and try to track what we're spending legal fees on. But other than that, the committee report is to take no action. So I put that in the form of a motion.
So Representative Flanagan here. So I'm looking at the call, Representative. So is that the first one, approval of 100?
That's the first approval of $150,000 in legal fees. We heard this.
Okay, so your motion is to take no action on this?
That's incorrect. That's incorrect. As a point of information, this was heard by Ways and Means. It wasn't heard by Rules and Ordinance.
Representative Black? Representative Black, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, we did hear it he's correct. Mr. Cook is correct. It was Ways and Means that heard this. And as I say, the determination was that the minority leader and the majority leader will be reviewing legal fees on a quarterly basis.
Okay, so as I understand this, the approval of the 150K in legal fees, your action is to take no action on this?
As the committee, that's my motion.
I'm sorry, Representative Black, you're broken up. What was that? No action?
No action.
Okay, no action. Okay, go ahead. Next one, request a review.
No, wait a minute. Comment, please.
Who's this? Mr. Cook?
First of all, that was not heard by rules and ordinances. That was heard by Ways and Means. So let's get the agenda right. Did you hear me?
Moderator, this is Representative Brockett. If I could speak to this issue.
Well, go ahead,
Representative
I'm
Brockett.
sorry, Mr. Cook, if you had the floor. I thought you were done.
I'm just trying to clarify that this was not heard by rules and ordinances, and then I know that the committee or the R.T.M. members speak first, but I'm just saying it's not a rules and ordinances item. And secondly, I don't think it's right that you consider all the things that each committee hears. Hear each one. Each one was a separate item. Come on.
I don't disagree with you, Mr. Cook. I just thought you were done. I apologize.
No, that's all right. I'm all right.
Mr. Moderator, if I may speak to the issue of illegal fees.
Go ahead, Representative Brockett.
Thank you. And Mr. Cook is correct. This was an item that was heard by Ways and Means Committee. And the short of this is that there's actually a resolution to this matter. And the resolution is the majority leader and myself worked out an agreement whereby there'll be a quarterly report. But the quarterly report will be issued to the Administrative Services Committee because the Administrative Services Committee is the entity, it's the appropriate committee where legal falls under. The only reason it went to Ways and Means to begin with was because it was about money that was coming out of contingency. So on a quarterly basis, the finance director and or town council will send a report out showing the amount of money that's spent in legal fees. And it also give us a total of the legal fees spent for the quarter. So in my view, this will accomplish three things. One, it will accomplish all of the R.T.M. members having the ability to view a general description of where the legal fees have been paid in a quarter. It'll allow the R.T.M. members to track the amount of legal fees that were paid pursuant to the budget that was authorized by the R.T.M. members, to keep track of that. And three, in the event somebody wants to look at a specific issue that's available on the quarterly report that they submit, they'll be able to do that by going into town hall and viewing it. So I think the appropriate course of action is to just remove it from the agenda. I suppose by taking no action, that's the same thing. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Yeah, if that's a motion, I'll second that. I think that's to remove it from the agenda with the understanding that we've got the action by the two leaders going forward.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Black.
The motion on the floor has been seconded to remove this item from the call. Any discussion on members of the RTM? Any discussion from members of the public?
Like to comment, please, briefly.
Yep.
I know we have things in front of us. I'm not going to belabor every single one of them. What I'd like to say to this one, though, is I commend the minority and the majority leader for working this out. The purpose of this letter was to just get more accountability and scrutiny to legal bills. And if this is the way you're going to do it, it's fine. If you got to remove it or whatever, I just would like to see that this really happens. Because if you remove it, what guarantee do the citizens have that you're really going to implement this change? You're just going to take your word for it? I mean, that's fine with me, but is there any record of this if you just remove it?
Mr. Moderator, this is Representative Brockett. We've already received.
Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Moderator, through you, we've already received the first quarterly report. So
Okay.
I'm confident that between
That's
the
good.
majority leader
That's
and the
good.
minority leader, we will continue to get these.
Okay, that's
quarterly
good. One other point, please. I brought up at the meeting that the RTM is now paying, allocating the appropriating the amount after the bills have been paid. That's counter to the charter. You can't do that. The chairman, Representative Black, said, that's always bothered me too. And I said to him, well, if it bothered you, with all respect, why don't you fix it? So I'm bringing before the body, why doesn't the RTM fix that? Do not allow bills to be paid until you appropriate the money. Seems simple to me. You do it everywhere else. Why not with the legal fees too?
Okay, hearing no further comments on this.
Wait a minute. That's a legitimate question. I mean, why does everything I say fall on blank faces? I mean, does everyone want to just go home? I mean, that's a legitimate question. You're not supposed to do that. It's against the charter. And everyone looks at me like, well, what's he talking about? I'm talking about your charter. Mr. Black knows this. He fancies himself the historian, fancies himself the parliamentarian. Well, speak to it. You were the one that said in committee, you don't like it either. Why don't you fix it? You have a chance to fix it right now.
Dennis?
Who's this?
Selectman Dunbar.
Dunbar. Go ahead.
So I think the action you're taking tonight is appropriate. It's going to work. I am committing myself to say that if monies are not appropriated, I will not be signing off on them weekly. I have been made aware of the charter, section 11. I will be talking to finance concerning that, as we're not supposed to sign off on any appropriations that haven't been approved. So I'm not sure how we're going to handle it yet as a town, because obviously there are bills that come up sometimes and they're necessary and you have to do them. But the charter doesn't allow us to sign off on those things if there's no money appropriated. So I will take part of the hit on watching and seeing that there's monies appropriated for something. So I think the agreement between the minority leader and the majority leader will work, because it'll keep everybody on your board informed of what the status is of the funds, and that will give you the opportunity to insert more money if needed. So I think what you're doing tonight is going to work.
Okay, Representative Frank, thank you, Selectman Dunbar. Anyone else from the RTM wishing to speak to this item? Anyone from the public wishing to speak to this item? Okay, so hearing none, we're voting to remove this item from the call. Is there any no votes? Is there any no votes? Is there any abstentions? Okay, hearing none, this item is removed. Next one from Rules and Ordinance, Representative Black, is a request to review Code of Ethics.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. We had a discussion of any possible changes with the Code of Ethics with Mr. Cook and with Ted Ells, chairman of the Ethics Committee. He's got a ordinance or code from Belmont, New York, and from also another booklet, which we all received, which I believe is from Columbia Law School. And Mr. Ells will review those items with the Ethics Committee and come back to us with a report as to whether they feel that any changes are needed. So the committee voted to re-refer this item, and we'll get a report back from Mr. Ells after their November 30th meeting. I put that in the form of a motion to re-refer.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to re-refer this item. Is there any discussion from members of the RTM?
Mr. Moderator, this is Representative Henschel.
Representative Henschel, go ahead.
Just to make a correction, I believe, Peter, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was a December 30th meeting of the Board of Ethics that Ted was going to report on. Not correct?
Yeah. That's not my report. I'd have to review the tape, or maybe somebody's got a a look at the town calendar right now. I would
Representative Edelman, I think that issue was raised last night, Representative Henschel. I thought you had heard him incorrectly, and I thought he corrected you. That it's this month, November.
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 This is Representative Flanagan. That meeting day will take, from what I heard last night, is November 30th.
He did clarify that, Representative Edelman speaking.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wishing, or any from the R.T.M. wishing to speak to this item?
Quick question. Quick comment.
Mr. Cook, go right ahead.
I'd like to commend Representative Henschel and Mr. Ells for pushing this forward into the hands of the Board of Ethics. I think it was a step in the right direction, and what they decide is fine with me.
Okay. There's no further comments from either R.T.M. or from the public. We'll vote on the motion to re-refer this item. Is there any no votes? Is there any no votes? Is there any abstentions? Hearing none, this item is re-referred. Next one is examination of the POCD process. Representative Black?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. We did not hear this. The committee's motion is to re-refer, so I put that in the form of a motion.
Okay, motion on the floor to re-refer this item. Is there a second?
Oh, it's a committee report.
Just a committee report, okay. Any discussion from members of the R.T.M.? Any discussion from members of the public? Hearing none? Is there any no votes? Is there any no votes? Is there any abstentions? All right, this item is re-referred. Next one, examination of state statute 830G and its issues in Branford. Representative Black?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. We had a brief discussion about 830G. It's a state statute. If we want changes in it, largely it's got to be done in Hartford. So the committee vote was unanimous to take no action, so I put that in the form of a motion. Or remove this from the call if you want to put it that way.
Okay, motion is to remove this from the call. Any discussions from members of the R.T.M.? Any discussion from members of the public?
I may make a comment, Mr. Moderator.
Yes, who's speaking?
Tom Petrowski, sir.
Tom Petrowski, go ahead.
Yeah, we discussed this in detail the other night, but the bottom line is we just want to see what the town of Branford is going to do, because other towns have taken action against this without going to Hartford. For instance, planning and zoning boards had backbone in other towns. We don't happen to have that. We could also, limit what we do here, but there just seems to be no cooperation with it. And unfortunately, our town is being abused by this law. And until we kind of do something, maybe we need to figure out how much of our affordable housing through all our condominiums that we have, because we do have the most capita per the United States of condominiums. How many of those are Section 8? How many of those are affordable? Our trailer parks and everything else. Maybe that needs to be counted before we just keep letting people come in and abuse our laws in planning and zoning. And that was kind of discussed last night at the R&O. And because of this law, and like I said, and I hate to beat a dead horse, but we're going to end up losing town property because of this law. And, hopefully that resonates with the R.T.M. because you guys do deal with real estate. But the bottom line is we are going to lose ball fields and parking lots. And that's up to you guys to decide what you want to do. I mean, if you guys don't care about that, that's fine. That's great. And I just leave that with you guys, and you guys can decide what you want to do. Thank you very much.
Okay, anybody else from the public wishing to speak on this? Representative Flanagan here? No?
Another quick comment.
Mr. Cook?
Just like to quickly reiterate what Mr. Petrowski said. All we can do is bring issues before the R.T.M., before the Board of Selectmen. We can't make you think that they're important or that they're worth pursuing. Personally, I think that he raised a fair point, Mr. Petrowski did, that, it's a pretty intimidating statute that you're dealing with that has a lot of impact on every community in this state. Now, if you don't think it's something to be reckoned with, again, that's your call. I disagree with it, but that's your call.
Okay, any further comments from the public on this?
I'd like to speak, please.
Okay, Mr. Nichols, go ahead.
Brian Nichols, how you doing again? My understanding is this, that we could put a moratorium on the building down there, but that's up to First Selectman Cosgrove. On top of that, what I don't understand is this. So we're going to take roughly, and I'm going to use rough numbers here, 60 units, okay? And then we can put 10% in there. And they have a land lease for 99 years at $1 per year and only have to lease to 10%, which right now it's full of veterans, disabled, and whatnot else. That's not my discretion to deliberate that. But in all reality, when you think about this, we're losing all that housing to only give 10% to, say, 70 units in there. That's 7 units at low income when we already have 50. It doesn't make sense. The numbers don't jive. And when you look at the corruption, I don't want to say corruption because I'm not sure exactly what happened there, but for $5,000 or maybe 10,000 to do a forensic audit into that place and figure out where this money went. Why did the last property manager run away scared? I'm not sure. On top of that, we were paying their benefits. Why? Any complex I ever worked for, I had to show workers' comp. I had to show certified payroll and whatnot else. This company never had to do that. So there's a lot of things that aren't jiving there that just don't make sense to me. And that's what we need to figure out in the end of the day. Thank you.
Anybody else from the public wishing to speak to this? This is Representative Flanagan. Okay, hearing none, the motion on the floor is to take no action to remove the item from the call. Is there any no votes? Is there any no votes? Is there any abstentions? Hearing none, this item is removed from the call. Now we're up to a petition and examination of the possible improperties occurring during Costco inland wetlands application and independent peer review, along with examination of the investigation into the manner promised by the first selectman. Representative Black.
Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, this is Representative Sullivan. I just need to recuse myself from this item. I did in R&O as well. And I'd asked, I believe Representative Edelman could just text me when this item is finished being discussed. Just as a point of recusal, my wife is on the Wetlands Commission, so I don't feel it's appropriate for me.
Okay, thank you, Representative Sullivan. Representative Black.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. We heard a presentation by Mr. Cook on this item. This item is under litigation with Mr. Cook. The committee's vote was to take no action on it with an abstention from Representative Henschel and Representative Sullivan recusing himself. Seeing as it's under litigation, so that's the committee report, and I'll make an individual motion to move the question.
Mr. Moderator, this is Representative Ingraham. I'll second the motion to move the question.
I'd like to speak to that, please.
It's a non-debatable
No,
motion.
this is not fair. I knew you were going to do this. This is not fair. This is not fair. This is absolutely not fair. This is what I'm talking about. This is wrong. If you guys vote on this, you should be doubly ashamed of yourself. What is the matter with you people? I have a perfect right to represent 60 signatories of this petition in our interest. This is wrong. This is absolutely wrong. Be ashamed of yourself, Black. Absolutely ashamed of yourself.
All right, Mr. Cook, there's a motion. It's not debatable on the floor.
It is debatable. This is very debatable. This is.
I'm sorry, but the motion has been seconded. Okay?
You make me sick.
Motion on the floor.
Really make me sick. This is so bad.
Any discussion, further discussion from members of the RTM? Hearing none. Representative Black, would you please restate that? Representative Black.
My motion, that does require a 2/3 vote, but it's to, call the question.
Move the question, right?
Yep.
Okay, all those in favor of moving the question signify by saying yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
No.
Any no votes? Are there any no votes?
You're a bunch of cowards. You really are a bunch of cowards. You're a disgrace to this town. You're a disgrace to this town. You really are. You're a bunch of cowards. Absolute cowards.
Representative Flanagan here, the motion carries.
You're absolute cowards. Did you hear me?
Go ahead.
Come off.
All right, Representative Black, let's continue.
The motion is, to take no action. That's the committee report.
Any discussion on the committee report? Members of the RTM?
I'd like to speak.
This is members of the RTM first.
Just a,
Mr. Moderator, we just called the question.
I just called the question, okay.
There's no discussion.
No discussion, all right. So from what I've heard, the item carries. No action on this item.
This is why we need a town council. Get rid of the RTM. We need a town council.
All right, moving on to the next petition. Examination of the past and present living conditions at Parkside Village Housing Complex and its
Mr. Moderator,
housing.
for interrupting, could Representative Adam, could we just wait till Representative Sullivan comes back?
Go ahead, Representative Adam.
I'm just waiting for Representative Sullivan to come back.
Okay, go ahead. Representative Sullivan, you back? Representative Flanagan, Representative Edelman, we can't wait all night for Mr. Sullivan, Representative Sullivan.
Your call, Mr. Moderator. I've texted him.
He's back now.
He's back? Okay. Okay, so back to my other one. This is a petition and examination of the past and present living conditions at Parkside Village Housing Complex. It's oversight by the Branford Housing Authority. Representative Black.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. We did hear a presentation by Mr. Petrowski on this. There was some discussion. Ultimately, this is a separate agency. The town does not have much control over the housing authority, but there is some ability by the Board of Selectmen, which is the appointing authority for the housing authority, to remove members for inefficiency and other reasons. So our committee voted to refer this to the Board of Selectmen for any possible action if required.
Okay.
And I'll put that in the form of a motion.
Representative, okay, that's in form of a motion. Any discussion from members of the RTM?
This is Representative Sullivan. Just a point of clarification. Not only was it to refer to the Board of Selectmen, but also to take it off of our agenda.
Thank you.
That's correct. Representative Sullivan, I interpret it that way. Any other discussion from members of the RTM? Any discussion from members of the public?
I have a comment, please.
Yeah, and I'd like to speak to it as well. Mr. Cook could go first.
I'd like to speak to this. A couple things. First of all, you know, whenever it's not something the RTM wants to hear, and I remember this from Representative Sullivan. He used to do it back in the other administration. He said it's not in the purview of the RTM. Well, the reality is everything's in the purview of the RTM. This is our town meeting. This is where people come to bring grievances, to bring concerns. It's your responsibility to hear them and to see them through, not to pawn them off on the Board of Selectmen because you don't want to hear them too much, too like inconvenient. So let's be really clear about that. You pulled that stunt in the old administration when you were moderator, Representative Sullivan, and you're doing it again. I found it very interesting, too, that at the last, not this past R&O meeting, but at the R&O meeting when we first considered this, that Representative Henschel, Representative Stepanek, and Representative Everson all said they had grave concerns about what's going down at Parkside, but when they were going to speak to this last meeting, nobody had anything to say. Well, what happened to those grave concerns? I mean, what happened to those grave concerns? All of a sudden, it's not in their purview anymore? What's going on down there is that you are not keeping, you know, tabs on a missing $4.5 million. Do you get that? People have been crying about that or certainly complaining about that for years. $4.5 million is missing. Terrible living conditions for the citizens down there. And you say it's not in the purview of the RTM. I mean, what kind of body is this? And I'm going to speak one more thing, and I'm not going to be out of order because it's relative to this entire process. My last petition dealt with the investigation of this town. It did not deal with the litigation. And what you all did was incredibly cowardly. Incredibly cowardly. Why don't you just take me on? There's 30 of you. You can't take one of me on? I mean, I've been here before. I've taken 30 of you on in the old administration. Over what? Over Tabor. And all of you looked at me like, what's Tabor about? Well, you found out what it was about. I mean, this is so bad. And I really mean it. We really need to consider changing our government to a town council because you folks, not only don't you understand the issue, you don't want to understand the issue. If it wasn't for these petitions, you wouldn't know any of this stuff, any of it. Why? Because I don't think you care enough to go out there and learn it yourself. And if you do, well, you're just not doing it. And that's as honest as I can be. You're failing this community. You're failing this community. You got a citizen in front of you that's saying that this town is corrupt and dishonest and costing you tens of millions of dollars, and you just sit there with blank faces and you say nothing. Why? Because it's too hard for you to handle.
Mr. Moderator, this is Representative Henschel.
Representative Henschel, go ahead and speak.
Yes, I'd like to take issue with what Mr. Cook has said about us not taking action on this particular item. I think what we've all struggled with is the fact that we don't have, as a body, any authority to act. The one authority we do have, and I think the authority we've taken, is to identify the one body in town that does have an ability to do something about this issue, and we've referred it to them actively, and that's the Board of Selectmen. So I think that we've done, in fact, what
I got it.
The one thing we have within our purview and our abilities to do.
I got
we could have just dropped the issue.
I gotta concentrate.
But we decided that we did, in fact, have a course of action, which was the referral to the Board of Selectmen.
In response to that, please, just quickly. Two things you could have done that you didn't do, and you had them in front of you. One that you could have done is you could have offered some sort of recommendation as to what's going on down there. But no, you didn't do that because that would require too much research on your part to really look into this. Secondly, what the citizens down there have been asking for years is a forensic audit. Now, you could have authorized that. You know, you control the purse strings, but, you know, that was too much for you to do too. So let's not kid ourselves, Peter. You know, you just pawned it off because you didn't want to deal with it. It was too much work and too much research. All you want to do is sit around and pretend you guys are important by debating $10,000 in a tax department. That makes you feel good about yourself. What you don't want to do is take on the hard issue. And that's why this community is dishonest and as corrupt as it is.
Any other members of the RTM wishing to speak to this item? Any members of the public?
I'd like to speak to it.
Okay, Representative Petrowski, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. One thing I'd like to say is, I agree with Mr. Cook a lot on this, is because when this first agenda item came up on the 20th, there was 3 representatives. That was Representative Everson, Stepanek, and Henschel that took a an interest in what was going on down there. And all of a sudden, come the following meeting, everybody disappeared. And it became to where the interest seemed to be, let's do research on how we could get this item out of our committee because we don't want to deal with it. And that's pretty much what happened. And I had talked to Chairman Black because he was the chairman of the board. And I had talked to him about the land swap. And he blatantly said it. And you could go back and look at the tape from yesterday. That, yeah, we did the land swap and the housing authority didn't hold up their end of the bargain. Now, isn't that dishonesty? Doesn't that looking into? And you guys blatantly don't care about anything that goes on, and you want to just get through it, and you do more research on getting out of your committee than you do getting it in your committee. I mean, you're all members of the R.T.M. You're the town representatives. You're supposed to represent all of us. And all you want to do is throw this stuff out left and right and not hear it. And I don't know what you guys are afraid of. It has nothing to do with you. You guys didn't do anything wrong. Why wouldn't you want to find the corruption? Why wouldn't you want to find the money? $4.5 million is on the table and nobody cares. You have senior citizens that are losing their housing. Nobody cares. I mean, and then this past meeting, Moderator Flanagan mentioned the fact, and I agree with him, and so did Representative Toohill, why aren't the apartments being rented? That means nothing to you guys. I mean, that's a blatant violation of the Fair Housing Act. Why, they sue us every time. Why aren't we countersuing them? Because we're afraid. And I want to be honest with you, is this is getting kicked back to the Board of Selectmen. And I thank Representative Wells for doing this because Representative Sullivan, probably spent most of his time trying to figure out how to get rid of this. But again, thank you, Representative Wells, for kicking this to the Board of Selectmen. But you know what? The Board of Selectmen is a waste of time because Jamie Cosgrove, Mr. Cosgrove, failed on this item time and time again. He lied blatantly to the public, as he did on a lot of other things. The first one he said was he couldn't remove Doug Dennis when the citizens petition went in. Here's the best part. Now listen to this. Let this sink into your heads. I can't remove him because I'm afraid of a lawsuit. Now, everyone knows in the state of Connecticut that Connecticut's an at-will state. How is a volunteer going to sue you for getting removed off a board? Let's be honest about that. That is total BS. And you know what? He stuck a pacifier in the citizen's mouth, and some of them bought it, some of them didn't. The next subject was, after that passed, well, Selectman Higgins is in the hospital. We can't do nothing. Okay, great. We'll buy that one because that was true. Then the next one was, well, I'm going to remove Doug Dennis when his term is up. He lied about that, and he let him stay on another 3 months. And in that 3 months, I don't even know if he was even legitimately allowed to sign the contract. He signed a contract with Beacon for another 3 years. And then Jamie decided to remove him 3 months after the fact. So Jamie's a known liar in this town. And let's be clear about that. I mean, he's not only screwed the people of Indian Neck over, he's also did it to Mr. Cook. He's did it to a lot of other people too. And you could not like me and you could not like Mr. Cook, but the bottom line is these issues are here and they're not going nowhere. So what are we going to do about it? And now this is going back to the Board of Selectmen. How confident are we, the people, in going back to him? He's a wimp. He's not going to do nothing. I'm sorry, Moderator Flanagan. But this is the truth. You spoke to the fact that you were concerned about the vacancies. That's still a problem. Let me ask you this question. And while he's on the board, let me ask Representative Ingraham, the majority leader, who was just as guilty as Jamie Cosgrove, because he facilitated the land swap. He's just as guilty as anyone involved here. He hasn't said nothing. He hides his head in the sand. You know what, Ray? Why don't you speak to the people? Because you've been a roadblock to everyone in this community, in your district, and you told us personally, I have witnesses to it, you said Don't talk to the Democrats because they're going to use whatever you say against them. That's what you told me in front of 8 people with witnesses. Don't talk to the Democrats. They're going to use it against you. You know what? The Democrats are more responsive to us than you are. And this is your own district. And you turned your back and you've been a roadblock. And you know what, Ray? Shame on you. Shame on you as a majority leader. Shame on you because you are just as bad as Mr. Cosgrove is. And that's all I got to say about it because you know what? Good luck with you.
Okay.
Good luck.
Representative Flanagan. Anybody else wishing to speak?
Mr. Moderator, this is Representative Ingraham.
Representative Ingraham.
I'd like to make the point that I am in proud company being with First Selectman Cosgrove.
I'd like to make a comment, please. One last comment.
Who's that big door?
One last comment. I'm going to say this directly to the R.T.M. It's directly related to this, but it's also related in general. And I hope you listen to what I have to say because I got 12 years of experience standing in front of the R.T.M. looking at blank faces. The reason that we are corrupt, the reason we are dishonest as a community, and we are, make no mistake about it. In the last administration, the Connecticut Supreme Court said we were. In this administration, you all know we are. We all know what went on in this town with Costco was so bad, and other things too. Parkside is so bad. The reason that we are that way is because we have a disengaged and disconnected and quite frankly, I would say lazy R.T.M. that does not hold the first selectman accountable. You know, running unopposed in this town because of a weak opposition party does not make you unaccountable. And I promise the first selectman, he is accountable to the citizens and he will be. The R.T.M. doesn't hold them accountable. Neither side does, which is shameful. Neither side. We don't even have an opposition party in this town. I don't even know what the Democrats are doing. You might as well have just one party, the way you guys just dismiss everything. But I'll tell you one thing, the same way we did in the last administration, the citizens will hold this government, including the R.T.M., accountable. Promise you that. I promise you that.
Anybody else?
Mr. Moderator, could I speak? Mr. Moderator, could I speak to this item?
Representative Everson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I would like to make a motion, if I am able to do that, to refer this to the state of Connecticut because they have the purview, let's use the word purview, over the Branford Housing Authority. And if we want to request a forensic audit of the Branford Housing Authority, we need to request it through the state of Connecticut. So if that is what the request is, which is not what this petition states, but from what I am hearing, that is what the ultimate goal of this petition is, then perhaps we should address it to the state of Connecticut and not the Board of Selectmen. Thank you.
All right. The motion on the floor that came out of the committee was to refer this.
Can I speak to that?
Mr. Moderator, I'll second that motion. Representative Ingraham.
Representative Ingraham?
I second the motion from Representative Everson that this is a state issue and should go to the state and notify our state representatives.
And not to the Board of Selectmen?
That is correct, the amendment.
Can I speak to that?
This is Representative Flanagan here. We're doing a R.T.M. procedural move on this right now. So let's recap this now. The motion is being changed from to re-refer this to the Board of Selectmen to send this to the state of Connecticut. Is that correct? Representative Everson, is that correct?
Yes, it is, Mr. Moderator.
Okay. Now,
this is Representative Wells. Point of clarification. Can I ask Representative Wells as a point of clarification?
Go ahead, Representative Wells.
Who are we sending it to at this? Who are we sending it to at the state of Connecticut?
Representative Everson or Representative Ingraham? Are we sending our state reps, or who are we sending this to?
Requesting, it would need to probably be requested through our state representatives, but I believe we could send it directly to, I'd have to look up the name of the agency that oversees public housing in the state. That's who should be reviewing the Branford Housing Authority, is the agency that oversees housing in the state of Connecticut.
May I speak? This is Representative Sires.
Representative Sires, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Representative, through you, moderator. I've been involved with this housing authority since 2016. I was on their call last night with the housing authority. And speak with the state on a regular level. The state will tell you that when it comes to commissioners of the housing authority, that does go back to the first selectman and board of selectmen who appoints them. They will not get involved with it. It's a quasi-state entity. It seems to be in limbo. They are in flux. It will go nowhere if you refer it to the state. And the housing issue itself, there's a 1974 agreement where the vacancies, if that's what we're talking about, could be forced on the town level, because these are residents of the town of Branford, the people who live there. So there are many divisions with this petition and with this topic. Some are local, some are state, some funding is federal. So it is a very complex issue and not something that could just be referred generally all over. It has to be a specific referral. And I will be more than happy to spend time with anyone in the RTM to discuss this, but it takes a lot of time in dissecting to discuss where everything would be referred. And I've lost, where are we discussing referring this point? Thank you.
If I could clarify, this is Representative Everson.
Go ahead.
The motion that I made was to refer. It's actually called the Connecticut Department of Housing. A request to the Connecticut Department of Housing to perform a forensic audit of the Branford Housing Authority. That is the simple request.
And I thank you, Representative Everson. If it would be that easy, I've been trying that for many years. I don't think it would be that easy, but I would say it's a lofty task at this point, because there is so many problems at that housing authority, and the changes it's gone through with the management changes. I will tell you, I was for hours at their meeting last night. They do admit there are problems. They have admitted it during their last night's meeting with their finances. The two new commissioners that were sworn in have brought that out. They're at a standstill themselves. They're working out their problems. The commissioners are aware there are financial problems. It was brought out in their meeting. Hopefully they're going to get to the point of resolving it. If you can get the state involved, that would be a lofty idea, and I understand that may be a consideration. But there, again, even with that, there's so many decisions that management has changed, and to tell you it would be an easy thing, I doubt it, but I am all for all the help we could get on the local and state level. This housing authority in the town of Branford is atrocious let's be honest, there are residents, there are constituents. The people who live there, they need our help. And I think the state level may take a lot longer than we have time for. I'd like to see some help on the local level. And I think we're getting there with our new commissioners, and I think we should support our new commissioners and support. Let's look into the living conditions and the finances of it. And I really do love this conversation, because they do need our help. And I would hope that we, as locally, as much as we could do, we help. And if we could get the state involved, that would be something I'd be willing to help anybody with, because I've been looking for the help for years. So if anybody wants to, I'm here and available. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator.
This is Representative Henschel.
Representative Henschel, go ahead.
Yes. First of all, my understanding is that Representative Everson's motion is to modify the motion that's already on the table. The second point I'd like to make is that I don't really see these two approaches as mutually exclusive. There's no reason why we can't refer this to the Board of Selectmen and at the same time send correspondence to the state indicating our concern with the issue, and have both things moving forward. I frankly don't think that we're going to get much traction or much action on the part of the state, but I would have much more hope that the Board of Selectmen might find it within their authority to look into these conditions and scrutinize them, and perhaps suggest a forensic audit if that's to be called for. They're the ones that would be also able to move to spend the money to do that sort of thing. If the R.T.M. in itself, we can't, decide to spend money that hasn't been proposed by the administration.
Anyone else from the R.T.M. wishing to
Moderator,
speak?
this is Representative Preet.
Representative Preet, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I support Representative Everson's suggestion, and I can appreciate Representative Sire's dealing with the state. If anybody's dealt with the state, you know what she's talking about. Can I just suggest that it might be prudent if we got our state rep and state senator involved in this to maybe champion this, help with getting this pushed through up at the state capitol. Might be prudent to get Representative Comey and Senator Cohen involved to help with the state level. Thank you.
Okay, so the issue before us now is to amend the committee report, which initially came out, to refer this to the Board of Selectmen. So
May I speak?
We're still talking to the R.T.M. right now, Mr. Petrowski. Anybody else from the R.T.M. wishing to speak to this?
Representative.
Moderator, Representative Edelman.
Representative Edelman, go ahead.
While I certainly agree with the intent that Representative Everson is promulgating, I think we need to be careful that we have enough knowledge to define this motion and this request as to whom we're directing it to. I'm not sure there's going to be any meat on a general, request to quote the state, unquote. I think we should probably discern with a little more accuracy the procedures for doing so, to whom, to what agency it would go to. I agree with Representative Sires of the bureaucratic hurdles this will entail, and I think in order to lessen those obstacles, we should have some clarity as to exactly tailor the motion with a little bit more detail than so far we've been espousing. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, this is Representative Austin.
Representative Austin, go ahead.
Yeah, I also agree with Representative. Oh my God, I just drew a blank. Who was it that made this? Thank you. It's getting late. Thank you. I do agree with that, but I also agree with Eddie Preet's suggestion that we should use our state representatives to help champion this and point us in the right direction. I mean, they're up there in Hartford. That's what they're there for. Thank you.
Anybody else from the R.T.M. wishing to speak to this? Anybody from the public wishing to speak to this?
Yes, please.
Representative Petrowski? Rep. Petrowski, go ahead.
That's what it should be, but thank you. Yeah. All I'm saying to you guys is, all of everyone that has a problem here, whether it's Representative Everson, Representative Sires, Edelman, whoever, why don't you make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen? Because this is where it has to go. Mr. Cosgrove was the one that appointed these people, and Mr. Cosgrove is the one that could take these people off the board. I think our focus needs to be on him. And I think if you guys really want to see the truth, you could contact me and I will show it to you. And it's been blatantly put out there in public. We don't need to go to the state. This is a town problem. We don't need to override Mr. Cosgrove. We could do it right here. And any one of you guys that has an issue should just write a letter or send an email and say, you know what? We think there's an issue here. And send it to Mr. Cosgrove and Second Selectman Dunbar and Third Selectman Higgins. Maybe we'll get somewhere. We don't have to bypass our own town to go to the state on this, because Mr. Cosgrove put these people in power, and he has the power to take these people out. He chooses not to, for whatever reason. I don't know. I don't want to get into it, at this particular thing, but I will get into it with him at the next Board of Selectmen meeting. So why can't we, and I'm going to ask the 3 representatives, and actually I'm going to ask the 5 representatives, Representative Everson, Henschel, and Stepanek, who spoke at the 10/20 meeting that had issues with Parkside. And I'm also going to speak to Moderator Flanagan and Representative Toohill at the last meeting, which was last night. Why can't you write a letter going to Mr. Cosgrove and say, we think there's a problem, we need to do something? That's all I want. I don't need backflips out of you guys. I don't need anything, but something needs to be done here. A problem has been recognized, obviously, by you guys. And like I said, before it seemed like Representative Sullivan, I'm not trying to throw him under the bus, spent more time researching how to get this out of his committee than to solving the problem. But at the end of the line, you guys are all town representatives. So why throw this out of committee or do whatever, which you try to do, when we could easily solve it? We need to work together here. And one thing I will agree with Mr. Cosgrove, and trust me, I hate to agree with him, but there shouldn't be R's and D's in a little town like this. This is a town problem with town people, with senior citizens losing housing, kids losing their ball field, and nobody cares. You guys just, we're going to put it to another committee. We don't want to hear it. You should hear it, because a lot of the R.T.M. representatives facilitated that deal, and Chairman Black admitted to it that the Housing Authority didn't keep up their end of the bargain. So isn't that dishonesty right there? So why aren't we doing a town investigation right there? I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, all the evidence is there and you guys ignore it. Please, let's do something here. Thank you.
Get back to the
moderator. This is Jim Stepanek.
Yes, Representative Stepanek.
Mr. Moderator, the representatives have been making some excellent points, but I worry about dropping the ball. I've been taking notes. I hope the minutes are written up. I've been taking notes of all the really serious issues at Parkside, and I think they all need to be captured in some kind of document and rammed down the throats of any authority that has the slightest responsibility for this. And we should pursue that. But how do we do that? Obviously, some of you have done terrific research on this problem, Todd and Cook especially. And I think that somehow that needs to be galvanized, and it needs to be presented, and it should not be dropped. And it may not be the most ideal situation that we don't have, that this is a quasi-state entity, but we are the R.T.M. and we have an interest. And why can't we, gather this material together and do something with it, other than just plop it on the desk of the first selectman? Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Stepanek. I can't agree more with you. Thank you so much for bringing that up. Thank you.
Representative Flanagan here. We're back to the motion from Representative Everson and seconded by Representative Ingraham.
I would like to speak.
To send this to the state.
I'd like to speak.
We're still doing procedural things here. Who would the state, Representative Everson, or who do we draft this to? I mean, that's the point of this. Who do we send this to? I mean,
Mr. Moderator, it's the Connecticut Department of Housing that oversees housing.
Okay, so your motion and Mr. Representative Ingham's second then is to amend the committee report. Is that correct?
Mr. Moderator, if I could amend the motion, I would agree with Representative Henschel that it certainly could go to the Board of Selectmen, since they oversee the appointments of the Branford Housing Authority, and also request a letter sent from the R.T.M. requesting that the State of Connecticut Department of Housing conduct a forensic audit of the Branford Housing Authority.
Absolutely.
That sounds, Representative Flanagan here. That sounds more realistic at this point. Representative Ingraham, are you okay with that?
Representative Ingraham, I'll concur with Representative Everson.
All right, so let's get back to it. So basically, we're in some essence here agreeing with the committee report to send this to the Board of Selectmen, and also a letter to be submitted to the state of Connecticut. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Moderator.
Is everybody on board with that? Okay. All right.
Can I say this, Mr. Moderator? And I'm sorry to interrupt you. I know you're right. You run a great meeting. I agree with Representative Everson, but I also think it does have to go to the Branford Board of Selectmen. And I agree with her 10,000% that we need to do a forensic audit. And however we need to accomplish that, I mean, it's $5,000 that the town is going to get back. And you know what? Let's just put it to bed. It's either I'm wrong and the rest of us are wrong, or they're wrong. I have evidence. They don't. I think I'm right. Let's put it to bed for $5,000. I mean, we spend $1.2 million on animals. We can spend $5,000 on yours. So let's put it to bed. And I agree with Representative Everson. Let's just do it. Make a motion, send a letter of recommendation to Hartford from you guys, from everyone that agrees with it. Send a letter together up there. Say, hey, we're the Branford R.T.M. We got 10 signatures. We want a forensic audit, and let's get it done. And let's just put this thing to bed and be done with it. And then we could all go home and we don't have to be bothered anymore. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's what I believe that we're going to be doing anyway. So we're back to the motion we're going to vote on to send, refer this to the Board of Selectmen and also send a letter to the state of Connecticut. Are there any no votes? Is there any no votes on this?
I like to speak.
Is there any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. This item will be referred to the Board of Selectmen with an additional letter going to the state of Connecticut. Moving on now to the next item, Public Services Committee. A letter, examination of the removal of signs and roadways. Representative Conlon. Don, you're muted.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is Representative Conklin. This issue was heard at the Public Services Committee meeting of October 1st, at which time there was a motion made. We saw the presentation from Mr. Cook. There was a motion made to take no action. There was no second to that motion. However, the committee took no action. The RTM truly has no authority to compel anyone to attend our meetings. The RTM has no investigative authority. And for those who believe that their civil rights have been violated, the courts can decide that. The RTM does not. But I would make a motion on the floor tonight to take no action.
Okay, there's a motion by Representative Conlon. This is Representative Flanagan to take no action. Is there a second? Is there a second?
I'll second that motion, Dennis. Representative Kevin Healy.
Okay, there's a second by Representative Healy. Is there any discussion from members of the RTM?
Mr. Moderator, this is Representative Brockett. Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Representative Brockett, I would make an amendment to that motion although I agree with many of the things Representative Conklin said with respect to the jurisdiction of the RTM, I have some very serious concerns about the reasons given for the removal of the signs. There were essentially two reasons given for the removal of the signs. One was because there was a proliferation of signs back in October of 2019. And the second was that there was they were following a state statute. I've requested a copy of that state statute, and to date, I don't have it. I've also done some research, and I can't find one. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I haven't found it, and I haven't received it. But I have serious concerns about the removal of any signs. If you just go back within the last 30 days, once again, we had another proliferation of political signs all over. Just take one look at the Cloverleaf, and there was hundreds of signs down there, and not one sign was removed. But yet in October of 2019, several signs from several different entities were removed. So I would make a motion, amend Representative Conklin's motion to send this to the Board of Selectmen. That's where the decision was made to remove the signs. That's the entity that could answer the questions that Mr. Cook and others have brought with respect to the signs. And I put that in the form of a motion.
This is Representative Sullivan. I will second Representative Brockett's motion.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor and it's been seconded. Any discussion on Representative Brockett's motion? Any discussions from the public?
Comment, please.
Mr. Cook, go ahead.
Yeah, I know it's late. I know everybody wants to go. I don't blame you. I want to go too. But, and I had the presentation, but I'm not going to give it. The committee already heard it. And you know the essence of this issue. The essence is that town hall corrupt signs were taken down by Public Works. Everybody else's signs stayed. I made the point that if my sign said Happy Birthday Branford, which was the 375th, would they have been taken down? Well, no. So what we're really looking at is the constitutionality here. And Mark Zaretsky, I think wrote a very, fair article about this whole thing, that why were my signs targeted because of their message and everybody else's signs, business and, every social services or whatever, how come their signs stay the same? And is this very much a First Amendment issue? And is this a 14th Amendment issue of equal treatment under the law? All I would like to do is remind, and I like those screen sharing for one slide, just one slide, please. Probably know what it is.
Go ahead, Mr. Cook.
Not it. Hang on. Well, that is partly it. Okay. I'm sorry. This is your oath. And I don't have to put it in your face, but you can see the first part. The Constitution of the United States. That's what you swore your oath to. So to say, with all respect, Representative Conklin, that you have no jurisdiction here and that you have no purview, you have a responsibility to the Constitution. And I'm telling you right in front of you, with all respect, that my constitutional rights were violated. So you have some responsibility to me as a citizen to do something about it other than take no action. That's all I'm saying. So I think you're doing it. I really think this belongs in rules and ordinances. I think we need some sort of an ordinance or something that, oversees these signs, because you saw during the presentation, we have an ordinance and nobody enforces. You're not supposed to have sandwich signs anywhere in town, but you go up and down Route 1 especially, you're going to see probably 50 sandwich signs. So how come discriminate some signs but not the other? So this should be in rules and ordinances. That said, and I'm saying this because I honestly mean this, I don't think that Representative Black should be chairman of Rules and Ordinances anymore. I think he's unfair. I think he can stay on Ways and Means, but please put somebody else there. You saw him in action tonight. That is the most Bush League bogus move I've ever seen on the R.T.M. And believe me, I've seen a lot of them. To deny a citizen the right to speak to his own petition. That is so bad. And that's why I got more than a little bit angry. You be angry too. I went out there and got 60 signatures of citizens that cared about it. And Black just says categorically, we're not going to discuss this because it's in litigation. How many times have I sat in front of the R.T.M. listening to litigation issue after litigation issue? But tonight, because you don't want to hear it, because it's mine, you say we're not going to listen to it because we're in litigation. That is so bogus. That is so bad. So again, send us to R&O, take Black off of R&O. He doesn't deserve to be there, and and do the right thing. And one more thing. Thank you to Representative Everson for standing up, and I appreciate, I think we all do, for setting the tone of what the R.T.M. can be. And one more thing, and this is it. The R.T.M. is the power in this town. The R.T.M. 375 years ago gave the power to the Board of Selectmen. The R.T.M., meaning the town committee, was here first. So make no mistake that you are the authority. You can do anything you want within your own purview, and that purview is pretty wide, pretty wide. So let's make no mistake about the power you have should you decide to use it. Thank you.
Okay, back to Representative Brockett. Actually, Representative Brockett, this is Representative Flanagan. You don't need to make an amendment because Representative Conklin's motion to take no action didn't get a second. So your motion at this point is to send this item to the Board of Selectmen, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I would make the motion then to refer this to the Board of Selectmen. And I think that motion was seconded by Representative Sullivan.
That is correct. All right, hearing no further comments on this, are there any no votes? Are there any no votes?
Yes, Mr. Moderator.
Yes,
no
Mr.
vote?
Moderator.
All right,
Representative Conklin votes no.
All right, Representative Black votes no. That's 2 no votes.
Representative
Any other
Preet-
no votes?
Representative Preet votes no.
And then, okay, that's 3. Anybody else?
Representative Healy votes no.
Representative Healy votes no.
Representative Ingraham votes no.
No. All right.
Representative Ingraham votes no.
Anyone else voting no?
Dennis Representative Hines votes no.
I think we got them.
Okay.
Okay, Representative Leach, how many no votes do we have so far?
I need to have those re-clarified. I did not catch them all because people were speaking at the same time. So right now I have Representative Black, no, Healy, no, Ingraham, no, and I didn't get the others.
Representative Hines votes no.
Okay, sorry,
Mr. Moderator, this is Representative Sullivan. Maybe we should just do a roll call to make it more clear so everybody speaks on their turn.
I agree with that. It's getting a little confusing on there. So let's do a roll call vote on this.
Okay. All right.
A yes vote is to send this to the Board of Selectmen. A no vote is against.
Okay. Representative Edelman.
In support of the First Amendment, I vote yes.
Representative Alphone.
Representative Alphone, no.
Representative Anderson.
Representative Anderson is no.
You killed him. Representative Austin.
In the middle of the night.
Representative Austin.
Oh, sorry. All I'm hearing is background noise. Representative Austin votes no.
Thank you. Representative Brockett.
Representative Brockett votes yes.
Representative Conklin.
Representative Conklin votes no.
Representative Everson.
Representative Everson votes yes.
Representative Erlanger.
Representative Erlanger, yes.
Representative Greenberg.
Representative Greenberg, yes.
Representative Hagan.
Representative Hagan votes yes.
And I have Representative Healy as no.
That is correct. Representative Healy votes no.
Thank you. Representative Henschel.
Representative Henschel votes yes.
Representative Hines.
Representative Hines votes no.
Representative Ingraham.
Representative Ingraham votes no.
Representative Jackson.
Jackson, yes.
Representative Kelly. Oh, sorry, absent. Representative Leach votes yes. Representative Preet.
Representative Preet votes no.
Representative Riccio. Representative Riccio. Okay, I'll come back. Representative December.
Representative December, yes.
Representative Shrestha.
Representative Shrestha votes yes.
Representative Sires.
Representative Sires, yes.
Representative Sumro.
Representative Sumro, yes.
Representative Stepanek. Representative Stepanek. Representative Sullivan.
This is Representative Sullivan voting yes.
Representative Stepanek is on mute.
Representative Stepanek?
Hang on one second. This is Representative Ingraham. Town Clerk Arpin, when the host mutes someone, they can't unmute themselves.
This is Representative Stepanek. I think I'm unmuted now.
You're good now.
I'm good now. Stepanek votes no.
No, thank you. Representative Torelli?
Representative Torelli votes yes.
Representative Toohill?
Representative Frank Toohill votes yes.
Representative Wells?
Representative Wells votes yes.
Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 no's.
Hang on. Town Clerk Arpin, can you unmute 671-6604? It's Representative Riccio.
Representative Leach, did you get me as no? This is Representative Black. You didn't call my name when you did the roll call.
Yes, I do have you as no.
Okay.
Thank you. So I'm only waiting on Representative Riccio.
Representative Riccio, are you there?
This is Town Clerk Arpin. Can you repeat the phone number? I don't see that person muted.
It's last four is 6604. I see them muted on my screen.
I cannot unmute them. This is Lisa Arpin. They have to hit *6.
There he goes.
This is Representative Riccio. Sorry about that. I vote no.
No, okay, thank you. So I have 11 no, 17 yes.
Okay, the item goes to the Board of Selectmen. Moving on, Ways and Means Committee, a letter examination of town designated fund. Representative Black. Representative Black.
Hello.
Representative Black, you there?
Yes, I am. Examination of the town's undesignated fund. We had a discussion about that as well as other funds. I do believe that a number of us are very aware of all the fund balances. I know Representative Brockett, Representative Preet, Representative Conklin, and myself have had conversations with the Board of Finance, with the First Selectman, with the Finance Director regarding this revenue and what the draw is. It's not something that the R.T.M. has a direct influence over. So my motion is to remove this from the call.
By Representative Black to remove from call. Is there a
This is Representative Ingraham. I'll second that motion.
second? And there's a second on that. Any discussion from members of the RTM? Any discussion from members of the public? Hearing none?
I'm sorry, quickly comment on that. You know, I've been on this for about, 4 or 5 months. I started off with the Board of Finance in front of Chairman Mooney. I asked him about the undesignated fund balance. He gave me no answer, no transparency, no accountability. That's what led me to write this letter. So although Representative Black feels comfortable with it, I certainly don't as a citizen. And I've been trying to find answers to things. I think there are representatives on this body that are uncomfortable with certain funds out there. And I think one of them is the Human Services. I think the other funds that you go right down the list, I think there's like 15 of them. I think that most of the representatives here couldn't name, them or where they get their money or what they're used for. So I think there's got to be more transparency. I mean, if you're confident that you're on top of this, fine. But I didn't feel confident at all in the committee meeting that you guys were, because, quite frankly, you weren't making me feel any better. I just felt like, well, we know about it and that's good enough. Well, not good enough for me, not good enough for other citizens. So, you do what you want. I'm not going to beat these things to death, but I do think, quite frankly, that along with the legal fees, you got to keep a really close eye on those special funds, particularly the big ones. There's 3 big ones that total like $75 million. And do I have to remind you once again that the Board of Finance transferred $6.5 or $6.7 million from one to the other, and they didn't even tell you? They didn't even tell the R.T.M. What kind of nonsense, absolute disrespect is that? And you say you got a handle on it? I just, by the grace of God, I found out about it. You guys wouldn't have known anything. So don't tell me you got a handle on this, Representative Black, because you just let $7 million go from one fund to the other, and you never even knew it happened. And it's not even your fault. You know why? Because they didn't put on the agenda that they were doing it. Go back and check the agenda. It doesn't even say that they were transferring $7 million from one fund to the other. That's the Board of Finance. And you think that, we don't have any right as citizens to be upset? We got a lot of right to be upset by that. When you go and you come up with this $6.5–7 million issue, you got a real problem there. And you don't have a handle on the situation the way you think. Go ahead, do what you want. I've given up on certain things with this R.T.M. I'm very proud of the R.T.M. in other respects tonight, but do what you want.
Okay, the motion on the floor to remove the item from the call. Any further discussion?
Yes, Representative Flanagan, this is Representative Brockett. I'd like to comment on this issue, please.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I take issue with what Mr. Cook has said. And I support to a certain degree what Mr. Black has said. Peter and I have been working on several issues with respect to these funds over the course of the last 3 or 4 months. First of all, Mr. Cook is correct. The lion's share of the money is in 3 or 4 pension funds. One is the police pension fund, another is the volunteer fire pension fund, and another is the OPED trust funds. Those are all trust funds with invested money in which the Board of Finance are the trustees. I made a request some 6 or 8 months ago to the First Selectman's office so that copies of all of those reports would be available to R.T.M. members before the Board of Finance. We are receiving those reports, so not only do the Board of Finance serve as trustees of those funds, but the charters specifically prohibits the movement of money with respect to those funds. But we can also look at those as well and follow along. With respect to a lot of the special funds, I'm working with Mr. Black and with the majority leader to come up with a plan so that we can educate all of our new members on what these special funds are, what committees are in charge of these special funds, and what questions they can ask and what they can look for. And finally, with respect to the issue of the $6.7 million transfer, I can tell you that Chairman Black and myself have had ongoing communications with the finance director with respect to this transfer. Neither of us agree that the transfer was appropriate without going through the R.T.M., and we're waiting for some documentation to come from the Selectman's office. So I am comfortable with taking this off the call because we continue to follow up on it and do our job with respect to that. And I'm proud of that fact of everybody on the Ways and Means Committee that's doing their job with respect to these issues. So thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Brockett. Any further discussion on this item?
Just a response to that, please. I'd like to commend Representative Brockett on his participation in this process. I think he's been a shining star in getting some of these issues resolved, and along with others, of course. But, to his point, all right, I thank you for doing that. I thank you for taking initiative and getting these things under control. But, thank us too. Thank the citizens too for bringing these issues up in front of you, because I think we did a good thing. So, I'm not looking for, credit, where it's not due, but I think, okay, you thank us, we'll thank you, and let's get on with things. But I think that in this case, we work together all right, all of us.
I agree. Thank you.
Okay, hearing no further discussion on this, are there any no votes? Are there any no votes? Are there any abstentions? All right, this item is removed from the call. The last letter here from Ways and Means requests to create a new RTM committee to review special funds assigned by the Leadership Caucus.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ways and Means also discussed this as well as the special funds in general. These funds all have committees that have cognizance over those departments. I know, for instance, Ways and Means has cognizance over the Recreation Department. And when we went through the budget process this time, we took an in-depth dive on the Recreation Department fund. Again, specific draws from these funds are not within the power of the RTM, but we do monitor them and make suggestions both to the departments and to the Board of Finance as to draws from them. Another one that we did have a draw from was the Sewer Assessment Fund. Instead of bonding or taxing for $1 million, we made a draw from that. I know things like the Animal Shelter Fund, Public Services oversees that, and they're aware of that. And I know Anthony is very aware of the Human Services Fund. So each of these already have an RTM committee that has some cognizance over them.
Oh, you've gone dead.
Representative Black, you can't hear you.
This connection looks like it locked up.
Yeah. All right. Let's get back to the motion on that. I'm waiting for Representative Black to make a motion on this. Representative Black, you locked up? Can you hear us?
He just dropped. Give him a minute to get back.
All right. Is he back yet, Representative Ingram? No?
Oh. No.
Representative Black?
Not back yet.
Why don't we, all right, let's move on to the Administrative Services Committee, and hopefully he'll be back by then because it's getting late, okay? Administrative Services Committee, first petition to consider the possibility of public health hazards from the demolition debris at piles of the former Atlantic Wire site. Representative Elphone?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Admin Services heard this at our November 10th meeting. There was a great presentation put forward, a lot of discussion, and a lot of reps had some interest in doing some homework and following up at our next meeting. So we made a motion to re-refer this item, and I would put that forward to the full RTM.
A motion on the floor to re-refer this item. Any discussion from members of the RTM? Any discussion from members of the public? All right, hearing none. Are there any no votes? Are there any no votes? Are there any abstentions? This item is re-referred. Another petition, an examination of the role of the town of Branford in the removal of the earth.
I have my hand up.
From Branford Land Trust, Traverse Creek, and the potential safety hazard for the resulting flooding of Route 146. Representative Alphone.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Again, Admin Services met on this at our October meeting as well as our November meeting. There was a lot of discussion, healthy debate, and some reps had reached out to people at the state level. I know there was a tour of the site with DEEP. There was some additional homework and things that some of the reps on the committee wanted to look into. So we made a motion to re-refer this item into our December meeting. and I would put that forward to the full RTM.
Okay, motion on the floor to re-refer this item. Any discussion from members of the RTM? Any discussion from members of the public?
I've raised my hand many times, but apparently I don't get recognized.
Go ahead.
You there?
Yep, go ahead.
So, Rick, I raised my hand numerous times. So, in all reality, do you know how, like, basically, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Go ahead.
I'm losing you.
Representative Flanagan, I can hear you.
I'm losing you.
We can hear you. Please state your name for the record. This is Town Clerk Arpin.
This is Representative Flanagan. Go ahead, Representative Nichols. All right, we must have lost him. So we're back to the motion by Representative Alphone about the Jarvis Creek. Any further discussions on that? Are there any no votes? Are there any no votes? Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, this item is re-referred. Last petition, an examination of the 77-acre Tabor property in its current use and the development of a master plan. Representative Alphone.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Again, Admin Services heard this at our October and November meetings. There was a lot of discussion, debate. After our October meeting, some representatives had done some homework and they felt that putting this, there wasn't a whole lot the committee could do, and they thought that putting it in the lap of the first selectman might be the best option. So a motion was made to request the first selectman to form a committee whose purpose would be to investigate potential uses for the Tabor property while providing quarterly reports on the committee's progress to the Admin Services Committee. This motion passed unanimously with a 5-0 vote in committee, and I would put that forward to the full RTM.
Okay, so Representative Alphone, so I understand this, your motion is to send this to the Board of Selectmen to have him establish a committee?
Correct.
Okay, any comments from the RTM?
Yes, Mr. Moderator, this is Representative Everson.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I was the one who made the suggestion for the resolution, and I would like to make an amendment that we put some kind of a time frame on this, because there seems to be a commitment by the administration to do this. However, we've heard that before and action's not been taken. So I would like to put some kind of a time limit that this committee be created within the next 2 months, and it involve constituents, representatives in the 5th district, and also particular town department chairs, or like recreation, DPW, etc. Thank you.
Okay, any discussion from members of the RTM? Any discussion from members of the public?
Just to add to Representative Everson quickly, and I think I mentioned this in committee, that the committee also be balanced, because as we've seen, some committees are not balanced. I think there should be balance with, I think Representative Everson addressed it, interest from all different factions of the community.
Comments from citizens on this? Okay, hearing none. Are there any no votes?
Moderator Flanagan, this is Representative Leach.
Yes.
Could I get clarification on the motion?
Yes, Representative Everson, would you reinstate that motion, please?
Certainly. The motion is to request that the first selectman create a committee consisting of constituents, representatives who represent the 5th district, relevant town departments like recreation, DPW, look at the Tabor property and potential uses or no uses for it. Just because we use the word use doesn't mean that it's going to be necessarily utilized. It could be also open space.
Thank you.
Any further?
Mr. Moderator,
Representative Alphone?
Just quickly, I'm okay with the additional wording for the makeup of the body. I'm just a little concerned with the time frame on it. As much as we want to get it done as soon as possible, we've got a couple of things that challenge us with the holidays coming up, in-person meetings, trying to get citizens involved. I don't know if a 2-month time frame would be reasonable. I would support it if we took the 2-month portion of it out, but I think over the next 2 months, it might be a challenge to put a diverse body together that's described in that motion.
Mr. Moderator, this is Representative Preet.
Go ahead, Representative Preet.
Just a point of information, I don't believe Representative Everson's motion was seconded.
Representative Preet, I believe you are correct. I don't believe I heard a second on that. Is there a second on Representative Everson's motion?
I'll second it. This is Representative Erlanger.
The motion.
Seconded by Representative Anglinger. Okay. Continuing. Any further discussion on the motion?
This is Representative Wells.
Representative Wells.
I'd be much more comfortable voting on these resolutions if they didn't change wording every time I hear them. Is there a way that we can get this written up and distributed before we vote?
As Representative Flanagan, I that's probably somewhat difficult because we had 2 on the agenda tonight that came out of committee one way, and I believe Representative Everson changed the wording on it, so it's pretty almost impossible to get the wording until somebody speaks to it.
Okay.
Mr. Moderator, this is Representative Preet again.
Yes.
I am in favor with Representative Everson's motion, but I tend to agree with Representative Alphone. I think it would be prudent for us to take the time frame off, considering we're into holidays and COVID, and trying to get this group together in 2 months, I think would be a challenge. I think it would be more prudent if we just took the time frame off, and I would be in favor of voting. Thank you.
Okay. Representative Everson?
Yes, Mr. Moderator. I was trying to type into the chat what the motion was in more concise terms. I'm willing to withdraw the 2 months. I certainly hope that within the new year, early in the new year, that the first selectman will move forward with this. One other part of our discussion in admin services would to possibly engage a consultant to work with the group, a land use consultant, because it's a large property and there's Ecology Park and there's the solar array and you've got the Greenway Trail. So it is a lot of different interests, but I certainly think it could be done within the next few months. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, this is Representative Rocket. Point of order.
Point of order, Representative Rocket, go ahead.
Yeah, so I have a couple questions. First of all, I actually agree with Representative Wells on this. I think before we vote on it, at least we need to read it so we understand exactly what we're voting on, number one. Number two, are we going to vote on Representative Everson's amendment, or is Representative Alphone okay with the amendment, and we're just going to call it the original motion. So I just procedurally liked a little bit of clarification, and then perhaps if the resolution can just be read once, whether we're voting on either an amendment or a resolution, that would be helpful to all the RTM members.
Thank you, Representative Brockett. I was pretty confused about how to write this up in the minutes because it started out as a motion from Representative Alphone to send it to the Board of Selectmen. And I don't know if that was withdrawn or Representative Everson's motion. So I need some clarification.
Point of information, Mr. Moderator.
This is
This is Representative Ingraham. The motion coming out wasn't from Representative Alphone. It's from the Administrative Services Committee. So that should stay. And then Representative Everson's is an amendment to the committee report. We have to let the committee report stand, and then vote on the amendment, and then vote for whatever comes out after the amendment vote.
This is Representative Flanagan. That is correct. And I would, getting back to Representative Wells, it would be helpful to have these changes before we know what's going on, circumventing the committee process.
You know what would be even better?
This is Representative Alphone.
What's going on?
Through you, Mr. Moderator, I kind of agree with me as far as typing it into the chat so that it's written down for everyone to see. We've got a couple minutes. She could possibly write up the amended motion in the chat. Everyone will have it in front of them.
It already is, Anthony. It's already there.
Perfect. Everyone can look at the chat and have a little more clarification.
Yeah, I agree. So, Mr. Moderator, this is Representative Brockett. So the original motion is the motion that came out of committee that Chairman Alphone put, and then Representative Everson's motion, which is now in the chat room for everybody to read, will be the first vote. So we're voting on her amendment first, and then we'll go back and vote on the original motion, correct?
That is correct, Representative Brockett.
Thank you.
So we can figure it out.
Everybody see it in chat?
Yes.
Okay, so we're voting on Representative Everson's amendment.
This is Representative Sullivan. I just have a question.
Representative Sullivan, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Moderator, to Representative Everson. The text that I'm reading says that these members of a committee will consider creating a master plan, but the objective is not necessarily to create a master plan. I just want to make sure what we are suggesting that this committee's final objective is before we suggest forming it. Because if they're just, in my mind, considering to create a plan, there's definitely no need to look at hiring a land use consultant to do that. So I just want to make sure I know what we're requesting the committee is going to do as a deliverable, I guess.
Yes, Representative Sullivan, you're correct. I should not have typed consider to create. The ask was on the petition for a master plan, and the town has owned this land since 2003. And I think it's time that something be developed in terms of not the property, but some kind of a plan or potential uses or even further protections for this property, because it is town-owned property.
Any further comments from the members of the RTM?
I like to speak. I like.
Any comments from the public?
I'd love to speak.
Okay, go ahead. State your name.
Brian Nichols. So Tracy was just speaking about some certain property that's being landlocked. I'm just wondering what that actually is.
This is Representative Everson. We're discussing the Tabor property.
Okay. I respect that. But in all reality, what is your outlook on that in the future?
This is Representative Everson. I have no outlook. I mean, this is why I think that there needs to be a committee formed to look at potential uses or determine potential uses for the Tabor property to develop some kind of a plan.
Okay, any further comments?
Ms. Everson, would you be against putting affordable housing in there? I see at least 1,000 units being able to be put in there.
Representative Flanagan, Representative Nichols, this is not the issue that she's on that Representative Emerson is trying to put on the floor.
This is what I'm asking.
No, if you read what she's trying to say, she just wants a committee formed to look into the Tabor. That's all. She's not giving you any.
Why are you getting so hostile? Why are you getting so aggravated? I don't understand. No. I'm going to ask you.
You are unmuted.
Brian.
Senator Torelli, could we move the question, please?
All right.
Go ahead.
So, Representative Leach, Representative Flanagan here, would you please, for everybody's clarification, read the amendment that Representative Everson proposing, and we will vote on this?
Okay, what I have written down is Representative Everson made a motion to request the first selectman to establish a committee consisting of constituents, relevant town departments, and 5th district representatives to create a master plan for the 77-acre Tabor property, seconded by Representative Erlanger.
Okay, that's what we're voting on. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
Are there any no votes? Are there any no votes? Are there any abstentions? The amendment passes. Now, Mr. Brockett, Mr. Brockett, Representative Brockett.
Yes, sir.
So do you want to go back to the amendment has passed?
Yeah, now we have to vote on the motion as amended.
That is correct. Okay.
So the original motion was to
Send this to the Board of
send it
Selectmen.
to the Board of Selectmen, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Mr. Moderator, I just typed the original motion into the chat too, just so we have it for the record.
Thank you.
Yep.
Type it in the Pine Orchard.
Okay. Any discussion on that motion?
This, Mr. Moderator, this is Representative Black. We've just got the motion as amended. We just need to vote for that.
Well, we did.
We need to vote on the motion as amended.
That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing now.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any no votes? Are there any no votes? Are there any abstentions? Hearing none. Motion to approve the as amended, as the main motion. Well, we got you on the line, Representative Black. We have that one remaining item for you to request to create an R.T.M. committee to review special funds assigned by the leadership.
That's correct. Sorry, I lost my connection before, as Representative Black, but I'll move that we remove this from the call. I don't think there's any need for another committee. Each of these funds already has a committee that oversees it, or else it's trustees formally appointed by the by statute or otherwise, as far as the Board of Finance. So I'll make a motion to take no action and remove this item from the call.
I'll second that motion. This is Representative Brockett.
Motion to remove this item from the call and take no action. Is there any discussion from the RTM? Any discussion from the public?
Just a quick point. You know, you say you have oversight of these committees. Well, you didn't have oversight for $6.7 million. Not to keep rubbing in your face in it, but you didn't. So let's not pretend you're something now that you weren't 2 months ago.
Okay. Are there any no votes? Are there any no votes? Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, this item is removed from the call. Item 13, any other business to come before the RTM?
I have something, Mr. Moderator.
Representative Toohill, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Just like to request a moment of silence, please, for two great individuals that have passed, that both made great contributions to the people in the town of Branford. The two individuals are that I request the moment of silence for are, first, we lost recently former Branford High School principal, Dr. Edmund Higgins. He was the principal of Branford High School from 1989 all the way up to 2008. He was a great high school principal, and he will be sorely missed. The other individual that I request the moment of silence for is former R.T.M. representative from Short Beach, John Naseby, has also passed.
Representative Flanagan here will have a moment of silence in memory of the two people departed. Okay, any other business to come before the RTM?
Just quickly, please. I know everybody's
Go ahead.
I know everybody's tired, but I'd like to say one last thing. I'd like to thank you, the moderator, for I think an excellent job tonight. I didn't agree at all with your letters, the way you did it. I won't forget very quickly what was done with my petition, but I think overall, for such a relatively complicated and long meeting, I think, Dennis, you did a really good job tonight. And thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Any other
comment as well?
Oh, come on.
comment? Somebody wishing to speak about any other business before the RTM?
No.
Can I make a quick comment as well?
Mr. Petrowski, go ahead.
I would just like to thank you as well, Mr. Moderator. You did a great job tonight. Thank you. And see you at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. All right, if there's no other business coming before the RTM, Representative Torelli, the motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I
second.
All right, who's second?
Representative Summer.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. This is Town Clerk Arpin, and for the record, it is 10:30 p.m. Good night, all.
Everybody runs away from problems.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.